in a country full of people who are sounding like the West, who are sounding like other people, if you are able to sound like yourself is a great thing. I don't think I was in the space, in the mind frame to sit and learn. I wanted to express. My process entirely changed after Udd Gaye. I was like, oh, okay. I feel like I have written enough. Now I want to live. Every product that I put out, it needs to like go through these filters. One of the filters is, does it remind you of why you started this? Is 7th grade Ritviz happy with this? For me to be true to myself, I need to first be in touch with myself. When I'm writing those melodies and I'm writing lyric, I feel like I turn into some sort of an instrument. You take care of music, so then music can take care of you. When we make art, it's a reaction to our reality. Sometimes in order to innovate, you need that sort of like nothing to lose energy, which is harder in middle class families. If I don't fully enjoy myself, how do I expect myself to love another person?
Welcome to #Preach, where we deep dive into the minds of some of the most influential artists and creatives of our time. Today's guest needs no introduction. He is one of the most streamed artists on Spotify India. Known mononymously as Ritviz, he's an independent singer, musician, a record producer whose distinctive style seamlessly blends Indian sounds with hip-hop and electronica. Apart from his startling success at a very young age, what really intrigued me in Ritviz's journey was the bold and fearless moves that he's made throughout, like dropping out of school in grade 11 to not signing up with a record label and building his own independent mark in a very competitive industry. With breakout hits like Udd Gaye, come on, we all have danced our hearts out to that number. To collaborating with world-renowned artists like Nuclear, Love, Major Lazer, he has managed to capture the hearts of millions. And today he's here to do that with his story. This episode is powered by Nipposh. Before we begin, I always ask people, what is your origin story? And with you, I want to make it a little more like layered, if I can. Is because you had your song Avegi featured in a Marvel movie, which is really epic. Like, congratulations on that. I love people who manage to take India to the world. And I think art is such a soft power, just like fashion is, because it actually doesn't speak any language and it's so universal in that sense. So say Ritviz was in a Marvel movie, like a superhero. What would his origin story be?
I think a middle class boy trying to like really crack it in the and really prove to himself that he's worth something, you know. I think that would be a fun little story to begin with. And it's also really, I think it's an important thing to address that, you know, we sort of like are compressed as, like in a middle class family, we're really compressed as a, you know, and I think that story for me is very important because my folks sort of broke out of that. My parents sort of like broke out of that pattern and allowed me to do what I'm doing today. So my origin story, I think, should be more focused on my folks. I think they are the real superheroes here. You know. So yeah, I think that's what I think.
No, but I want you to expand on what you just said. You said middle class families or middle class upbringing is a very compressed. Why do you say that?
I mean, you can think about like you know, when you think about like maybe the rich or the poor, both sort of can come in play and say that they have nothing to lose almost, you know? Or for the matter, have like the middle class always thinking that, oh, we need to be doing just the bare minimum, you know, to make ends meet. And that can be limiting. While it's so important to have that sort of support, it can also like it's important because you're always trying to like meet the bare minimum, and sometimes in order to innovate you need that sort of space, you need that sort of like, you know, nothing to lose energy, you know, which is harder in middle class families.
Because you have so much to lose, which is
Yeah.
that you've just about come out of survival.
Yes, yeah.
And you're doing okay.
You know?
Like, you don't
Yeah.
want to just,
Yeah.
topple the barrel.
Exactly.
Like, you don't want to do it. You don't want to tip
and
it
this
off.
is most Indian families,
Yeah,
right?
there's so much fear there.
Yeah,
I
so much
think.
fear instilled,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, innovation requires a lot of like courage
Yeah.
and bravery. So I think my folks, why I mentioned that they are superheroes, because they were able to take that step for me.
Right.
Having your child drop out of school is not a joke. It's we're Asian Indian families. This is not
Scary, yeah.
yeah. And having that sort of like faith in your child, and I was what, like 17, 18, that sort of it did the opposite of fear, right? It instilled so much confidence inside of me.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, my parents believe in me. Like, and to a point where it was a normal, right? Like, it wasn't like I was being told that you are good at something. It's like it was our normal, right? And that was instilled inside of me from such a young age. So I always thought that I was good at something, but like from a very early age, I never had to prove it to them. Right. So that validation acted as like the biggest reward and like a priceless thing, right? That I didn't recognize the value of at a very younger age,
Yeah.
at a young age. But I had that. I was so lucky to have that. So that essentially then gave me power to do everything that I'm doing today. Because I'm like, oh, I don't find the need to, essentially it's security, right?
Exactly, like a
What
safety net, yeah.
Right? Safety net that you sort of have within you.
Yeah.
So it's not dependent on output. Right? So, and it's not like my folks were I'm telling you, it's crazy. When I talk about it also, it's really insane because I'm growing older now and I'm like, wow, I'm coming close to what age they were.
Yeah.
I mean, still a little while, but as I'm growing older, I'm like, oh my God, one day I'm going to be like a parent, and how I can't believe that they went
Yeah.
through what they went through.
Do you think it was because they were also artists? And I think being an artist kind of gives you that feeling of grounding in yourself. It is so internal than it is external, which is what you said. Like, then what you're pushing yourself for is not dependent on anything external. It's
not.
internal. So I think, do you
External, yeah.
think that it's because your parents were also artists
Yeah.
that they had a very firm grounding?
It definitely helped. I think it was because they had understanding of what I was doing a little bit. But also they were part of like society. They were holding jobs, day jobs. So
okay.
they weren't full-time artists, right?
Right.
They had a background of it. My mom is an Indian classical singer, but she's HOD at DPS, right? So that is a full-time job, right? So knowing that they had daytime jobs and were ready to support my full-time dreams, was, I think, where the insanity sort of comes in, that they had that sort of like, I think I was 18, 19 telling my folks that, Mama, like, it's going to be a minimum of 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we can expect anything before I'll turn like, 28, 29. So we need to keep that buffer of 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and I remember them being so clear about the fact that, hey, this is fine. You are not expected to make it big. You're not expected to do that. You do this because you are spending majority of your time doing this, So, sorry. Because that was like sort of, I mean, they saw me also work a lot, but I think that pressure of like breaking it was not there.
So how were the conversations that you had with your parents different from what some of your friends were having? Because I'm sure that when you went out and told your friends, hey, I'm dropping out of like 11th in school, I'm sure like you got a lot of reactions from your friends.
I didn't have friends. I think
really?
I think that also sort of worked in my...
So that is your origin story that you're not telling me.
Yes, I was a loner kid.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons why it worked in my favor was because my folks were my friends. They are also loner people like me. We're all very, very asocial that way.
Yeah.
So we ended up being like friends at home. We had a very like transparent relationship. So I didn't feel alone like embarking on this journey.
Yeah.
You know, like I think it's crazy to say that, oh, one day I decide to not go to school, but at home it doesn't feel any different. You know, we're still going about doing the things that we're doing anyway. To the world, it looked insane.
Yeah.
To the world, it's like, hey, what is he up to? Why is he doing this?
Yeah.
But at home, one day I decided not to do this. And it's like, you know, I'll just take this example of like how, you know, we're on the, when you know how on trains when like the
Railway track.
right, the track when it changes its
Yeah.
direction, we don't realize being on it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, it's sort of that. It's
Exactly.
sort of like that. So for us, it's like we moved such major like tracks. A
Right.
major decision was made.
But how were you as a student? Like, were you good at studies?
I was surprisingly decent. Yeah, I was okay. I think up until the point I cared. I think, you know, once I think music, and I was also like painting and stuff. I was like a lot of other things I was doing. I always thought I'd end up like being a writer or something because I
Yeah.
was like,
So I'm just trying to understand. Like, your mom is the HOD in a school.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So, and you are pretty decent at school as well. So, academics in general, like, your mom is also teaching it.
Yeah.
She's with a lot of students.
Yeah.
She's with a lot of teachers. They're prioritizing studies and excelling
Yeah.
in school.
Yeah.
And then back home, the conversations that she's having with you is that, okay, then I guess if you're going to study music, that's also like you studying, just like
Yeah,
in a
true.
different way. So I
Yeah.
guess she looked at it like that, because I think in one of your interviews, you very clearly said that the conversation that you had with your mom was, she said, we didn't do anything extraordinary. We were just, you were putting in that kind of hard work and we were seeing that.
Yeah.
So we were simply supporting that. Like, if you were somebody who was just saying, I don't want to go to school, or like math is too hard, which is probably me.
Same.
Like in school. You weren't doing that. And I think even what you just said, the conversation you had with your mom where you said, don't expect anything major till 28, 29. It's
Yeah.
going to take me. That's a lot of maturity for somebody who's like 14 or 17.
Yeah.
Because when I started designing, and I was like 19, I was like, India needs me. Like, they don't even know they need me.
But you need that energy. It's also good that you had that. You know, you need that.
But I'm
yeah.
saying, like, the conversation you had was so mature. So I guess that must have instilled a lot of confidence in
Yeah.
your parents. So, like you said, your parents also studied music, and
Yeah.
they were like your bandmates almost at home. Did you all like practice together, rehearse together?
I feel like they've studied more than I have. Mama has properly, like, I think Indian classical, you know, both. For me, I've studied a little bit of Khayal and a little bit of Drupad. Mama pursued music at one point, so she knows a lot more about Khayal. She's learned under late Girija Devi. So I think for her, I think the understanding of music was on a superior, like much higher level. But I think at some point when I started creating, I think some point, I think it convinced her that, okay, what he's doing is maybe worth something. I don't know. But she did enjoy the stuff that I would write at an early stage. But you know, like how you mentioned, it's such a chicken and egg conversation, because I always talk about how they allowed me is why I did what I did.
Right.
They always talk about how he was doing it, so we had to, we gave him that leeway. It's insane because we both see it from our own, like, I'm always going to be like, there are hardworking peeps out there. There are so many people in the industry who work harder maybe, you know, but don't have that same environment, you know. Why I find it necessary to mention this always, because the process was nice because of this, you know, like at home, my association with music was nice, you know. I didn't do it out of a need to prove myself or like letting people know why I'm doing this. I did it because I enjoyed doing it, and it remained that, you know. So for that reason, I'm very grateful to them, and that's my whole point. And uske baad, yes, everybody works hard. You know, you have to put in the hours.
100%.
You know,
You still have to.
You still have to. Yeah.
So, your parents are trained in classical Indian music.
Yeah.
And you also, while you were growing up, you did train. Not as much as
Not
them,
as much, yeah, but a
probably.
little bit, yeah.
But now the kind of music that you're making, you went on to become a DJ, and
Yeah.
then you came out with one hit after another. As much as people thought it was a one-hit wonder,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
still going really strong.
That's good.
But to me, to a layman, to an outsider, it's a very contrasting approach to music. From what we hear, right? Like it's very modern. It's very, like, as I said, I was dancing and my nieces were dancing, right? Like everybody can kind of connect with it because it's just got so much energy in it. And I've heard a lot of criticism also of that music, and I'm saying it very openly because I hear criticism about my work all the time.
It's
right?
important,
Yeah. It's really important. And I was like, I like that they criticize my work, means they care.
It's bad if you don't get yeah, that's when you know you're not doing it right.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Like, what were the influences that have made Ritviz create the way he creates?
Honestly, there's so many. Like, I think if I have to really like, I can't like pinpoint and say, oh, this and this like sort of like was a culmination, because I think this is all such a like play of the subconscious mind. You know, like there's so many things happening that we don't even realize. So I think because of having maybe my tell right now is that a lot of like my early influence was Indian classical.
Okay.
My first set of music, and I was like, what, maybe 5 or 6 years old, even younger maybe, when mama would like do riyaz in the morning, and she never asked me to join. My first association was me joining her, you know, so I remember that, and it's very precious to me because that's how it all began for me.
Beautiful.
Right? I would join her in the morning practice and stuff, Sunday mornings. That happened, and that happened for a good while. I think another like till I turned 10, 11, you know. Indian classical was primarily like at home. We weren't even, folks were not listening to anything else. Like that was the major. Once I think post like 5th, 6th standard, you know, that's when I think all of us, like I got introduced to hip hop and VH1 Top 40, all of
90s
that.
90s were amazing,
right?
and 2000s was
2000s,
so
early, that was the golden era, right?
yeah.
Right? And I think that sort of like brought this need to express. Like I'm listening to Lady Gaga and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think after that, that need to express sort of like started building inside of me. The thing with Indian classical is that, and I'll be honest, like the amount that I've studied, I don't think the freedom to like be like I think expression is not priority, is what I can maybe say, right? Like discipline is right. It's more about like learning the tradition, obviously, right? That's priority. You could spend years and then maybe come up with one tiny composition, and even that won't be like, you know, because that's not priority. It's about like really like honing that skill, right? Which is maybe something that I was not very interested in. Like as much as I was learning and practicing every day, but I don't think that what was exciting for me was, oh my God, how do I compose? You know, I had the creator inside of me started bubbling up. And then I think the next thing we know is that like I was finding like beats online. I started off like, I was so influenced by rap at the time, I thought I'll be a rapper.
Can you rap for us a little bit?
Oh God, oh my God.
Some early raps.
Please don't do this.
Okay, fine.
But so I mean, that's how I started like, you know, adapting a little bit at that time. In 5th, 6th standard, I used to call myself MC Richard.
So cute. Why Richard?
Yeah, I had a snapback on and I'd just like find beats online and I would like start like writing verses and stuff in school, right? I think that was
in school. Did you take part in like your annual day singing? And
I was in the choir and everything.
You were doing that.
Mama was she was, you know, she was teaching music, so I also had that. I mean, because I was also singing from a very early age.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would join the choir. I'd join. I was always part of that, but my primary interest, like, you know, was like composing stuff. And it's like, oh, how do I like write music? I want to write music, you know? And that's my early...
So how did you start writing music? Like that is something that people really want to know, you know? Because even I haven't really studied design. Right. So a lot of questions I also get is, how did you just start? Like, and so for me also it's genuine curiosity. Like, how did you just begin to write music? Like, did you get some softwares online? Did you want to apply to any universities abroad? Did you want to go study it? What did you want to do?
So I think somewhere it's all associated with how how crazy you are about that thing,
Yeah.
right? I think I always think about this, that if you are like, it all depends on how insane you are from within, right? Because I think a lot of the expression sort of takes form um, depending on how the intensity
Yeah.
of it, right? So I think I could not have waited. I don't think I was in the space, in the mind frame to sit and learn.
Right.
I wanted to express, like I wanted to let these thoughts and feelings out.
I can really
right?
relate, yeah.
So for me, that impatience sort of like turned into like, and I was spending like 17 hours every day just writing music. To like when I like how I was talking about earlier, I started off with finding music online and I would compose over it. But that didn't give me entire creative control.
Right.
Is why I started like learning, going to YouTube and like just figuring out, okay, I need to be downloading Ableton and this software, that software to learn music. None of this was formal training,
Yeah.
right? Everything was informal and informal. And for me, I think the idea was that I just need to have complete control. You know, if I want to tweak this little thing or that, I just want to have control so I can free flow and do whatever I want. So because of these things, like I always talk about how you can walk into an exam hall and like you can walk in with like no tools. You don't need to have a pen. You don't need to have anything on you, right? But you have the answers inside of you,
Yeah.
right? You'll find somebody. You'll be like, hey, can I borrow a pen for a second? You know,
Yeah.
tools are secondary. It's always been secondary for me, right? So, and it's okay to also have the other approach where you're like, oh, I want to first get ready for my exam. Let me get my pencil. Let me, and I will learn how to express over time. That's also a secondary way. I was just from the school of thought that, and honestly, that's how I was operating at the time, that I just had so much to tell.
Yeah.
I had so much to tell, so I just had to collect like whatever I could find and just start painting, just start writing music,
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of these things, like a lot of my way that I found, when I think about it, I'm like, how was I operating at that time? Because
Yeah.
I'm not that person anymore.
Yeah.
But
you're a self-starter, and I
I'm a
think that is a
self-starter,
very,
yeah.
very clear like tell of
Yeah.
a lot of people who have businesses now,
Yeah.
or like artists who are successful. That has to be there in you. Like, I want to tell my story.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
I'll do it comes later.
Exactly, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's how it started for you. And
Yeah.
now when we look back, because youth is something else. And I
Yeah.
think I also started designing when I was like 19. And I think you started when you were 17 and
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
back
sure.
in school.
Back in school, yeah.
So I think that is a gift that youth gives you. That you don't really worry so much about the what if it does
Yes.
not work out.
Yes,
What if I am bad? What if they don't like? Farak nahi padta yaar. I want you to listen to me.
Yes,
Like I
yeah.
have something to say.
Yeah. So driven. You're so
Yeah.
driven as a...
So how are you different now from what you were then?
I think I can never be that person,
Yeah.
I think it's very funny because the things that we want as when we're youngins, all the things that we imagine for ourselves, we'll have this and this, the life we'll live as adults. It's funny because when you reach that point, or when you at least have some acknowledgement, okay, I might have reached that point, because sometimes it's a never-ending process.
Never-ending, yeah, for sure.
I think recognizing that is a big one.
Yeah.
But once you recognize it, while that's a great thing, it's like, oh, the delusion just died. You're like, oh, if I've reached, then why do I need to work? Like, why do I need to? Because you've like sort of reached the other side of the, now it turns into a grass is greener situation.
Yeah.
I'm now probably looking at young Ritviz going like, damn, he was so driven, But he's gonna probably be like, but this is why I was working hard,
Yeah.
He's probably looking at this and being like, but this is the whole point. I think maybe I'm at a stage where I need to recalibrate with myself and see what is it that I want. What is the second,
What's next?
What's next? I
Yeah.
honestly don't know at this point.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that I thought that I wanted, and I'm very lucky to say this, those things are sort of in place a little bit, that like makes me just go like, oh, I am pursuing what I love.
Yeah, and you are like
right?
on stage with Katy Perry and like you're collaborating with
Yeah.
some of the biggest names like Major Lazer, and it's insane all that you've accomplished.
I mean, thank you. And I think even more than that, I think the freedom to make the music or do the things that you want to do without the pressure of society or any expectation, right?
But did you ever have that pressure?
Exactly. I didn't. I was lucky because I think folk sort of had that emotional support that they gave me, but also financial, right? Like at early age, like your folks giving you that sort of like puts you in a bubble also of sorts, right? Where you're like, oh, I can do whatever I want. But that's also because there are other things that are like disabled for you. Not like you don't have to think about like, your meals, you don't have to think about like bills, all of that, right?
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think growing older, reaching that state of like awareness where I'm like, oh, I'm now like 28. I do understand. I'm like, oh, money is okay. This is like a whole thing. Like, oh,
It's a thing.
whoa.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because now there's so many things that we have to think about. Like in a very weird way, I now see myself as a brand as well. Like as much as I'm a musician, I'm also like, oh, you're also like a business, and it's insane. Like, oh, and these thoughts maybe I didn't have as a kid as much. So many more things as adult. Then I'm also now relationships, this and that. There's so many things that are like on the dashboard.
Yeah.
So I think it could be treated as a grass is greener situation.
Yeah.
Like how you were talking about, like as kids, we just want to tell our story,
Yeah.
and now we're weirdly living it.
Yeah,
We're living that story, and living is so much harder than just like going like, listen to this.
So I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is that I always believed like how Bon Jovi sang, and that stayed with me. Like the poet needs the pain, I need you. So do you feel like artists need pain for them to create?
I think this is a very good. I'm so interested. Like intrigued that you asked this because I was thinking about this like yesterday. I think artists need intensity.
Right.
Right? We need to feel a lot. You need to feel more than the regular. In order for art to come out, I think the amount of feelings needs to be a lot. Now, it could be in the negative realm or positive. Right? You could have pain or a lot of joy. So I think what's important to account for is that intensity is important. People do associate a lot of like art with like, oh, you need to go through something negative or like pain is required.
Yeah.
I think that same amount of intensity in a positive realm can also affect.
So do you find yourself seeking that out? Seeking such experiences?
When I started off, I think at a very early stage, there were no experiences, right? I was a kid. I had no idea how to go about anything, no social understanding, none of that. But I had desires and understanding of like, oh, maybe it could be like this.
Ambition.
Like, right? Yeah. Even if you take like some of my earlier music, like Liggi, for example, I'm talking about a situation in a relationship, like I'm like apologizing to my partner. I've never dated anybody at this point when I was writing this, right? I have no idea what a relationship is like.
Right.
But it's purely out of like a fantasy, right? It's fiction in my head and I'm writing that. Today, I think once I sort of like created a little bit of like, I think when I had that big break, so I was like, okay, now we can focus on my personal, right? I think maybe now. And then I spent about like the last 5 years doing that, right? Really building. I think my 17 started at 22, and spending those 5 years, and it's the same as music because like I'm 17, but I'm actually 22, right? Spending those years, I've realized so much about myself, right? And I was like, okay, now I'm going to write music based on the experiences that I will have, right?
Yeah.
So the last five years, I stopped making music. I was like, I'll let music come to me, right? The earlier 10 years.
That's a very brave thing to be able to do as artists.
Yeah, because I think before that, it was about like, oh, I'm so driven and I'm making music every single day, right? My process entirely changed after Udd Gaye, but I was like, oh, okay, I feel like I have written enough. Now I want to live. Let me live and get inspired and then let it come to me. So I think I've last 5-6 years now, I've just been writing music like that. Going through, living my, trying to be a good son, trying to be a good partner, and just like being that person to my best ability should help me like write music. And I think that's how I've been writing music in the last 5-6 years. change is happening now. I think moving from this point, I've reached 28 now, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to incorporate a little bit of discipline that I had when I was starting out. But
Right.
even if I don't want to write, maybe I can write some music.
Do you feel like there's some complacency that sets in after
Yeah.
success?
Absolutely, 100%.
So how do you kind of push yourself out of that?
I think first you have to go through it. First you have to also
Sit in it.
sit in it. I think
Yeah.
sitting in it is important.
Yeah.
I think because if you don't sit in it, I also the worries one of the worries could be that then you never think you will get the answer sort of situation. Right? You're always searching for an answer, right? Knowing that okay, you've sort of reached some plateau is a good thing. Also, you're like okay. Sit in it. I think it's important to sit in it and explore a different method of
Right.
your creating process, right? Because I think a lot of trial and error also it's very anxiety inducing. So a lot of these processes need to be altered and need to be revisited. So now I'm just like, okay, I might need to do a mix of these two. It's good that I got comfortable and it's nice. It's nice to be comfortable for a bit. It's fine. You've been working really hard. It's
Yeah.
okay to take it easy.
Yeah. Are you still a loner?
I have one best friend and I love him to death. I've known him since second standard.
Yeah.
So I've obviously in the last 6 years, I've spent more time focusing on that relationship that I maybe couldn't do, at an earlier stage because music was everything.
Right.
Right. So I think, I don't know if this is a formula of sorts, but the way I look at my life, that music, you take care of music, so then music can take care of you at a
Wow.
certain point, right? I
Right.
think that sort of I really lived it, and I'm really proud that I'm able to sustain a relationship today.
Yeah.
Because so I think just hitting that sweet spot of giving in your early 20s, just work really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
I don't be a terrible person in that time though. I think it's important because I feel like I don't think I was the best. I wasn't the bestest friend that I needed to be for my friend. But I think right after, I think I was also able to spend that time. It's so important to live. That just comes back to the complacency also. Yeah, everything is not work.
Yeah.
And maybe this thing that we talk about getting comfortable is what the whole point is. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's frightening
It's
if
also
you are
frightening.
just so trained to be
Yeah.
what next, what next, what
Yeah,
next?
yeah.
The plateau can be really scary, frightening.
Yeah.
Because there's also a fear of becoming irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
You're not relevant anymore suddenly.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I think this I think is a very interesting conversation because I've always thought about, okay, what actual value does relevancy hold? If in the truest form, relevancy is temporary, right? Because that is exactly in the mean.
definition, yeah.
By definition, it's in that moment you are popular or whatever, right? That shouldn't be our striving anyway. I think we
Right.
should strive for, if anything, a longer, right, a level above that, legacy, right?
Legacy.
And I think if we focus on that a little more, then we'll realize that okay, you can take it easy, and I think the association with output is so important to get rid of. I've always thought of this. I'm just the minute we get rid of that in our head, somehow reprogram
really
it.
hard, though.
It's very hard. It's very hard. And if we are able to crack it, because even I don't have an answer. I don't know how
Yeah.
to do that.
No, it
But
seems like you do. It seems like I need a session with you to understand how to
no,
not,
I have no idea.
not
I'm a full idiot.
balance my whole life on output. Do you feel like social media is a deterrent now for a lot of young folks? There's so much anxiety. There's so much competition. Today, I'm competing with somebody sitting in Germany.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Why do I have to? When we were starting
Yeah.
up, it was just our friends.
Yeah, we wouldn't think about it.
friends.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just limited to that. But now
Yeah.
it's as you said, it's so much more.
So much more. Yeah.
You're a brand now.
I
know?
can tie this into my early day story.
Yeah.
Right. When I was in school, and I've decided to drop out. Now you can imagine my mom going to school.
Yeah.
Right. And people talking about this this is probably the hot course
Yeah.
in school that
A teacher's son has dropped out.
Teacher's son is not coming to school anymore.
Yeah.
This is like, what is happening here? I wouldn't find out about this though. Mama would come back every day and ask me about how the music is going. So for about a year of like dropping out, I had no idea people are talking outside, and I was just holed up, and like that environment is still fresh.
Yeah.
So why I brought this up is because that is so important to sort of like also live in a bubble, you know, which we had at an earlier stage when we didn't have social media. You know, we didn't know as much, so ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
You know, and you sort of like, because if I'm thinking, had I known, had my mom come back and like maybe given me a little bit of shit, like, hey, well, people are talking. What are you gonna
This
do?
one said this, that one said
that would
that.
probably like, you know, pester
Occupy
me a
so
little bit.
much
My
brain.
head would, you know, that would be it would take over. I don't know how much I would be able to create. Or maybe I would create out of a need to prove then.
Yeah.
You know, things would change a little bit there. And which would also be normal for her to do. She didn't do it, so it's insane.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she was probably hearing it from people and stuff. So I think I connect that with this a
Yeah.
little bit, where I think later when I gained a little bit of, you know, attention and all of that, I'm looking at comments, I'm looking at YouTube comments, and I'm getting pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? Why are you saying this about my art? You know? And then I realize, oh, I have been in a bubble. That's why I've been able to write this music so nicely. That bubble helped me, like, you know. So while it's important to get out of that bubble, it's also important to have it at stages,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Knowing
you
so
don't
mu-
need constant feedback.
don't need constant feedback.
Even the good.
Yeah, even the good, yeah.
You don't need it.
We
you know?
don't need attention. We
Yeah.
do not need to see how other people are doing at all given time.
Ah.
Like, you know, it's there in our face. Like, it's just there
Yeah.
telling us.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to sleep? Why don't you see what this one just did?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to sleep now? No. You know,
Exactly,
guess what
yeah.
just happened? You have, it's very rare, the environment that you grew up in, and the family that, you know, you lucked into. At that time, then, where do you think ambition kind of came from? Because you were always associated with, you know, I have something to prove.
Yeah.
I want to show it to the world.
Yeah.
So, where do you think your ambition comes from?
Oh, such a good question. I think once I don't know, I would call it a hamster wheel, right? We're all on our own hamster wheels. It did start with like liking what I like. I think it was really interesting to make music for me, or just create any sort of art for that matter. The ideating was always very exciting. Like, I love ideating. I love just like. This also ties into my chronic overthinking. You know, I think because I'm that is also why I make the art that I make, because I think too much. Because I enjoyed that so much, naturally, I think the output also started like formulating. I don't know at what point it also became interesting to tell the world this. You know, I'm just like, oh, have these thoughts, but now I want to share this. You know, I think part of making is sharing. Like, it's a good 50%, I think. Like, if you make that art, you want validation. You want people to hear it, you know, because you think that this is, like, sometimes when you keep art with yourself for too long, it starts like, you know, like affecting you.
Also
you know.
losing meaning.
Losing
because
meaning,
I think
yeah.
we're inherently social beings, right? We want to share. We want to
share.
connect.
Yeah. And this is post like earning like good validation at home. Like, I didn't feel the need to prove myself, but I still felt like, oh, I would love for people to hear this.
Yeah.
You know, I think, I don't know where that comes from, but I guess you're right. Like, we're social beings. We want to share,
Yeah.
you know, what we create. Because if you're creating and not sharing, you know, that's why I sometimes think about people who go like, I'm making music for myself. You know, and I'm thinking about that. I think about that. I'm like, are you creating, are these like original compositions that you don't want to share with people? And it's an interesting like conversation, but I've always felt the need to share. You know, you could treat music as a hobby and learn a few chords and learn songs, and that could be, you know, something that you want to keep to yourself. But I think part of creation is sharing. Yeah, at least that's what I believe in.
100%. And I think this takes me to like how you started off being a DJ, and that is where you get instant feedback. Either the crowd is like going woo, or they're just standing waiting for you to go to the next track, or they're coming up to you and say, "Can you play the next? Can you play this song?" You know,
I
so
have to tell you
it's like
stories.
that is feedback like in your face.
In your face, yeah.
You know, so how has that kind of And it's interesting that you had that experience before you had your biggest hit.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, did that feedback or did that experience of connecting with people like that, the good, the bad, the ugly, the like, can I throw something at you? Feeling.
Yep.
Um, uh, did that influence how? Did you then come up with a formula of what you thought would work for people, or did you just still create Udd Gaye as just something that came out of you?
It created some sort of resilience, if I have to be honest. I think it definitely, like, the first few shows that I did were hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I've never stepped out of my house, so I have no understanding of what is happening outside. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about this. Are you
Yeah.
saying that in your teenage years
Yeah.
you didn't go to clubs,
No.
you
No.
didn't go out party,
No. I was,
but you wanted to be a DJ?
But I mean, it's crazy, exactly. So I'm
Yeah.
like walking into these clubs that I haven't been inside as like a consumer, right?
Yeah, you've
So-
never judged the DJ.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I am walking in thinking, oh, this is like, I have been in like what? I was in my room thinking, oh, this is what would be interesting. But I've never been inside of a club, right? Inside of like a music venue. So initial gigs were hilarious because I would do exactly what I thought that the consumer would think of. In fact, I wasn't even thinking about the consumer, right? So a lot of people at first would just be like, "You're the only one dancing. Why? What are you doing?" And it was also scary because I'm like this 17-year-old kid who has no idea.
So
And
you started DJing at 17.
actually much earlier also. But I think for me, it was a quick story on this. Quick context would be that I did not know that I would turn into a DJ. I was making music. And then I needed to figure out how do I play this live. And that's how I think DJing, I got introduced to like this format of,
Right.
performing live. So early gigs were all about just being in front of like people and being like, oh my God, I am a disappointment to these guys so much. Nobody liked me. I don't think anyone like enjoyed, because I don't think I was necessarily a good DJ. Because I was just focused on playing my own music. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not playing the music that they
अच्छा,
want to
ये सुनिए बनाया
and,
मैंने,
and they won't, the crowd won't care,
Yeah.
at that point. So I was just like, I was a terrible DJ to begin with.
No, I want to just stop you.
Yeah.
there. You're sitting at home making your own music.
Yes, yeah.
You get an idea that the world needs to hear it.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, so I just need to go play it somewhere.
Yeah.
Where do they play music? Probably you found it online.
That's exactly
They
what is
played-
happening in my
they
head,
played
yeah,
in the
yeah.
club. Okay, great. But then how do you actually get a gig? You don't network, you don't have friends, you don't
Yeah.
socialize, you don't go to a club. How does then Ritviz get himself a first gig?
My attempts on networking, right? I'm trying to, and it was horrible because I would just like reach out to promoters who would just be like, if you want to play, bring people. Right? That's how it works,
Yeah.
right? Then I'm just like, but I don't have friends. How do I do this?
Yeah.
I need a manager to handle my selling because I can't talk about my own self, right?
Right.
So it was just funny. I think the early days were just funny because it was just me and my best friend going around in Pune, going to clubs and just be like, hey, I want to perform here.
Yeah.
And they're like, get out of our face. Like, get out of our faces. What are you doing? Why are you in front of us? Wear the right clothes. I'm like walking into like, clubs at that point, walking in with
Being
shorts.
very Osho.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, you cannot, and what are you doing? And I was like, but So it was that raw.
Then what was your first gig and how did you get it?
I think thankfully someone like paid attention, but then again it was like one of the early local promoters who was just like, okay, I'll get you a gig. You will play at 6 p.m. Right? So I think my early shows are obviously like 6 p.m. Nobody's coming to a club at 6 p.m. It's insane.
Okay, so you're playing your first gig and you're getting feedback like, Ritviz, you're the only guy who's dancing.
In fact, these set of shows, though, I didn't even have people. Right? The feedback actually happened like a year later because I hadn't reached point of like having people in front of me. In fact, I remember one of the first few shows, one of the DJs like who was playing after me, I think the console or something was not working. So I got a chance to play like another 30 minutes. That was awesome. So I
Yeah.
got like a full crowd of people and I was so excited that night. Surprisingly, I was a decent DJ that night. Played some of like, and this is like early like, electronica days. So I was obsessed with
And
Tiesto
did you
at the
play
time.
original music?
I did, yeah. And I think this was one show that I feel like people had a decent time with it. So yeah.
So how did this experience shape how you started creating music? Did it change? Did you take the feedback? Or were you like very stubborn and this is what I like to make?
I'm not gonna lie. Stubborn is the word. I have been a little bit because I think the way I'm very headstrong about this, but I'm always open to feedback. It's not like I'm listening to it though. Like that's the only thing, and I know I'm being.
Are you still like that?
I'm still like that. It's.
That's good though. It works in this environment.
I don't know if I'm limiting myself by saying this out loud. Maybe I should have kept this to myself. But I think for me, it's very important that I'm happy.
Yeah.
Right? It's maybe a very self-absorbed way of like looking at life. But like I think for me, it's so essential that I need to be excited. And I need to be that person who takes that last call. I cannot have that. And maybe that's like my... association with control. I don't know. It's probably a toxic trait. I don't know what it is, but I need control. I need that last say. I need to have that.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
It's your vision at the end of it.
I try to disable that a little bit in my personal life though, because I'm like, I see how this is a problem. But with my art, I think it also kind of like helps in a way because I need to know that this thing connects with me on an emotional level. It connects with me on. It needs to satisfy like few boxes for me. Every product that I put out, it needs to like go through these filters. One of the filters is, does it remind you of why you started this? You know, do you know that it like connects? Is 7th grade Ritviz happy with this?
Wow.
You know, it needs to pass those.
What else?
Right? What else? These are mainly the main ones. And then I think it needs to be fresh for me. Like I need to put out something that I'm excited with, even if the world hates it. You know, the world can hate it and that's okay. You know, I should be okay with the world not liking my product as long as I'm going to sleep like soundly, you know. So this has always kept me away from, I entertain criticism. I laugh. I'm the first one to laugh at everything that is thrown at me. But when it comes to listening, my mother is the most important person in my life.
Wow.
And even her, she's the second person that listens to my music. Then it's Rahul. You know, Rahul's my manager. And also, like, I think someone that I've like connected so much over the years. And we work together, you know, but he's also somebody that gets the song much later, right? Like I need to sit with the song. I'm working on a song and he's like, how's it going?
Right.
But he knows at this point. He's like, okay, he will not send me that song till he's, you know, and it could be a scratch. It could be a draft project, but I won't share that draft till I'm happy with the draft, you know?
Okay.
So because of this state of mind that I need to be in all the time, I've made myself like the...
Okay, so many interesting things here. Okay, it could be a long podcast, but just going back to, so you're DJing. Some people are responding, a lot aren't. And then you start uploading your music.
Yes. So, I mean, back then, there was this, the company called CD Baby.
Okay.
Right? So, they are a distribution company. I essentially uploaded my song onto them and they must have shared with like Spotify and Apple, all of the DSPs. Again, I feel like when I look back at it, there was a certain set of people, I don't know what was going on in their heads, but they thought that my music was interesting for some reason. Because right after dropping out of school, I got in touch with... so the person that I learnt music from online on YouTube, I sent him my music. I was like, you know, I've been learning and like, I've been watching your tutorials. And so when I first produced like first 2 tracks, I sent it to him.
Who was that?
His name is Adam Pollard.
Okay.
Right? He's based out of like UK. And he has his own label and very cool, interesting person. So I'm like, I'm 18 years old and I have dropped out of school and I have texted Adam Pollard like, hey, I just wrote 2 songs and you know, thank you. He goes by the name of Multiplier and I just wanted to share with you. I had no idea what was going to happen next, right? He's then like responded back saying, I would love to put this on my label. And he has like a UK label and stuff. So I'm thinking, right, so this is like what?
At 18?
Yeah, this is like what, 2013 or something.
And what song was this? Have you heard it?
Yeah, it's out. It's out. It's called I Feel Love.
Okay.
And Beatific, I put this under, like, if you see my Instagram handle, it's called Wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's actually my first EP that came out in 2014. So this is how it began. I have nobody listening to me, nobody, like, I'm not on the map in the country, but I get signed to like a UK label.
Right.
And this is also right after dropping out of school. So this is a huge moment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I could argue that this is bigger than what Udd Gaye meant for me, because you can imagine the situation for me at that point, right?
It's insane.
Right.
What did you do?
Yeah, I was flipping, because I'm like, oh, somebody is just like, somebody that I've been learning under is just like validating this, putting this on there. So maybe I have something here, you know?
Yeah.
And when that happened, I think, obviously in another set of confidence, like sort of like just set in. I'm like, okay, cool, I can continue doing what I'm doing, because we need to realize that nobody knows what they're doing. But like this weird sense of delusion sort of keeps us going, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was just getting stronger and stronger every day.
So you're calling it delusion.
Yeah.
But I think I heard you mention also that it is a very spiritual process.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So what is your relationship with that word, spirituality? Because in India, there are just, and thanks to social media now, it's just convoluted to become, I don't know, something that we can't really define. I think it's a very individual kind of definition that everybody holds now. What is it for you?
I think when I'm making music, and like how I mentioned earlier, like ideating for me is, I think, the closest I can say to like a spiritual.
But why do you call it
understanding.
spiritual?
Because I don't think I'm making music when I'm making music. You know, when I'm writing those melodies, when I'm writing lyric, I feel like I turn into some sort of an instrument.
Yeah.
You know,
It's flow state.
It flow state, right? And when I'm in that flow state, because it doesn't feel like I'm doing it, then it naturally feels like there is, you know, a higher sense of understanding.
Do you get these moments often? The flow state, it's so hard. It
is very
just
hard.
such a sweet spot to be in. But like, how do you catch hold of it?
You know, I have.
Do you have practices? Do you have
you know, the amount of times on this podcast I've mentioned my luck, because I get into a flow state with my best friend all the time.
Really?
Yeah, with our conversations. So I'm so lucky, because this, I realized much later, is a very, like, if people practice this. You know, I had no idea that there was a term for this and stuff. I think he educated me on this one day. He's like, do you know what this sort of like state we get into and we just like start brainstorming? This is called flow state. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And we've had this since, you know, like I've been having conversations with Anjal, like since, his name is Anjal, since like 5th standard, you know. So with him, you know, I end up getting into these like really intense conversations about philosophies, life, blah, blah, everything. With music, when I'm writing music, not every time, because sometimes it could be like just figuring out a song on the technical side of things. But sometimes it really, like, I really get into it, you know. If it's my day, then yeah, I forget. I also lose complete track of time, you know. And this goes back into that conversation of like my folks saying, oh, we saw him work.
Yeah.
You know, I just think I was in constant flow state, and it looked like I was working really hard, you know, while my intention was not to work hard.
Right.
I was just enjoying that thing so much that then 17 hours were getting spent, you know. Sorry, I drifted off and started talking
that's
about
absolutely right. Like, but are you somebody who is obsessed with what is my purpose? Is that an obsession?
Yeah, obsession, yes.
Yeah.
So about like 2 years ago, that question sort of started popping up a lot. Because up until that point, I thought I knew everything. You know, I had an understanding of like, oh, I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
I'm so driven. And I think we all reach that point.
Early 20s.
Right?
Then you cross 25.
Yeah.
Wait till you cross 30. Then wait till you cross 35. It's magical.
It's right.
You know, every like 5 years, I feel like huge walls and structures break down.
Yeah.
And then you're just like a naked baby again.
Right,
And
yeah.
you're like...
But that's so important.
Yeah.
Because it's so scary at first, right? For me, like this happened like for 2 years ago for me. So I was what, 26.
26,
right?
yeah.
After 25, my quarter life crisis ke baad ho raha hai.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I feel like I don't have an anchor anymore. You know? But it's so crazy because up until that point, I didn't even realize there was an anchor. I was so driven that I just thought that I knew.
Yeah.
You know, like the delusion was so strong that you just like, you know it. The belief is so strong that you don't even think it's a belief.
Really?
Right? It's like,
It just is.
It just is.
Yeah.
Right? And that breaking was so scary. Right? I was just like, what is happening? But it was the greatest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so important to have that. Like it now, and I still feel like I'm still going through it. Like I don't even know what stage I'm at anymore, because I've realized that maybe I don't need to look for an anchor all the time.
Yeah.
It's okay to like be flowing. My partner actually told me this. It was early on when I'm telling her about like what's happening with me, and so she's like, I can't find my anchor. I'm telling her this. She's like, what if you need to flow? You know? And I was like, that just blows my mind, because I never thought about flowing. You know? So all of these things that like I think have made me question what my purpose is. You know? For me, I think I associated purpose a lot with family and like growing up, because I think that's what I...
Those
like
were your key anchors.
Key anchors, right?
Yeah.
And so I always imagine myself as like what kind of a dad I'll be, and you know. But it's also really crazy because I think I was also living in the idea of being a father for the longest time. I think 2 years ago when this thing broke for me was that I questioned myself, can you take care of yourself first? You know, I think that started like making me like, how do you expect yourself to be a dad?
Yeah.
You know, these questions started popping up, because before that, I was living in the world of, oh, I just have to walk into an exam hall and I just need to know what I need to know and I will find a pencil.
Yeah.
I don't think I can apply the same thing on my personal end of things. At least that's what I think right now.
Yeah.
You know, so when that broke for me and like this new like thing started shaping up, I think the purpose question is very much still a question mark.
Yeah. I've kind of done away with it.
Yeah.
Because
what do you mean by that?
when you're young, your purpose is very clear. It's just to make, create, make, and then it just is. Like there is, your key anchors are your family, and then it is work.
It's work,
And that is very linked with output and quality of output. So for you, like an output will never be satisfactory. There is never a piece or a collection I'll make and I'll be like, that was so good. Like it isn't for me. Like I'm glad that you love it, but for me, I'm just like, as soon as I made it, I'm like, ugh. Like I need to make something new.
Something new, yeah.
And then when I understood that, like how you define relevance, because it is so momentary that I felt even purpose is very much like that.
True. I'm so happy you're saying that. That fully like completes my point.
Absolutely.
There,
So now I'm just like, I'm not going to get hung up on that because, and then I started studying the Gita. And the more you kind of study it, you just realize there is nothing. There is no anchor. There is no purpose. Not in the world at least. So you just do.
Yeah.
And just pray that you don't get burnt out. And like,
Fair,
you know. That's why I ask people, because especially you're still in your 20s. And purpose is very real, because for a lot of artists, it's like, I'm going to create beautiful things that I put out into the world, because the world needs beauty, and the world needs music, and the world needs hope. And I think 100%.
So it used to be very exciting earlier to like, you know, make the music that I was making and like why I was making it to eventually be this. I don't know. I think my eventual is to be a dad for the longest time. Yeah, I think that's crazy when I think about it. I think I questioned being a dad 2 years ago. I questioned how I am with myself.
Right.
You know, because I think, sorry, I don't want to like jump into like a full therapy
please go ahead.
But for me, I think for the biggest thing for me is that I questioned if I like myself, you know, and if I don't fully enjoy myself, how do I expect myself to love another person, right? And like especially a kid, right? Because I think it was all coming from a place of me maybe not having the best relationship with myself and putting all that energy into my child. And I don't know if that was the healthiest thing that I would want to like have in my future.
Do you read?
I don't read a lot. No, I don't read.
So there's a really interesting book that my friend recommended to him by his therapist. It's called No Bad Paths. And it talks about internal family systems. Like we have external family systems, we have internal family systems. And I think that is something that I'm also exploring in myself, because when we say, I don't know if I like myself, it's not that you're not liking yourself in totality. There are some
Aspects, yeah.
aspects of you,
Yeah.
which are different members of our internal family
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
You know, so if you read that,
Yeah.
and how do you repair, like, how do I repair my relationship with my dad or with my
Hmm.
sisters or with my mom?
Yeah.
That is how we need to kind of
True.
work on our internal family
Yeah,
system. So
yeah.
if you do want to read, or your best friend can probably read it and
He's
update
probably
you.
read it. He's probably read it.
He can update you on this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's what you're saying is very interesting. After a point,
Yeah.
it is the construction and reconstruction
Yeah.
of your own self
True,
that
true.
becomes
like present, yeah.
a purpose in
Purpose.
itself.
Yes, yeah. I think that's, you said it.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like this renovating and then, rebuilding and then maintaining.
Yes.
Maintaining
Yes.
your building could be a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like there's a lovely quote by Jimmy Carr, and he said that as you age, you kind of realize that it
Yeah.
is not the journey, it is not the destination,
Yeah.
but it is the person that you become on that journey.
True,
True.
yeah.
And I think that learning that, at
Yeah.
least for me, has been really painful. Lot of heartbreak,
Of course,
a
yeah,
lot
of
of
course,
delusions
of
breaking,
course, yeah.
fantasies
Fantasies
breaking,
breaking, yeah.
and then you're like, now I just have this reality, and it's my job to make it pretty, like how you're
Yeah.
saying, the
Yeah.
reconstruction,
Yeah.
where will the curtains go,
Yeah.
where will the rugs go,
Yeah.
and
And it's weirdly like also I see the application in my like with tangible things also. It's insane. So this renovation that's happening internally, then in reflection also in the last 2 years have been happening around me. So like even at home, I don't think I cared about curtains for the longest time. I didn't care about like bed sheets. I didn't think about like where I was sleeping, how I was sleeping. I didn't think about how much water I was drinking, like because I was so driven about like,
Yeah.
I had this big picture always, right? So my whole thing was that I need to get to the output. Like I need to get to this end result.
Yeah.
How I get there, whether I'm starving myself or whether I'm being good or bad to myself, none of that matters.
Yeah.
I just need to get to this, like, tell the world what I have in my head.
Yeah. Go
Because-
and like the flag
Right?
up on the...
Yeah. This is people are you can't take care of yourself and also do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So now it's the opposite because I don't necessarily have something loud to say, right? And I've been in sort of like a renovation period. I'm thinking about how important little things are, and I don't think I see them
plants.
as like I don't see them as little things anymore.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Like
Beautiful.
one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I want to make sure that things are right around me.
Yeah.
So I'm taking care of, like, I don't know, I'm like, it's just little things which we all think are, but they sort of like are shaping I think my biggest thing is how's my day.
Yeah.
It used to be like, how is my year going to be?
Right.
It's no longer my year. It's no longer like my 5-year plan. It's
Wow.
every single day, right? And yeah, so I mean, that's...
And I can see the excitement on your face
Right,
as
you,
you're
s- you,
saying
s-
it.
you saw me, right?
Yeah.
Like this is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
So when I look back at my work, and I've been doing it now for like, I don't know how many million years, honestly.
Yeah.
And I look at each collection and each collection name,
Yeah.
and I can very easily tell the phase of my life that I was in.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know?
Hey, yes.
When I
yes,
was
yeah.
in love, when I
Yeah.
wasn't, when I was going through like, I need to show it to the world. Like everything, it's so clear.
Yeah.
So talk about your whole discography like that to me. Like, can you look back at your songs
Yeah,
and
yeah.
identify clearly? Because your songs, when somebody else hears it, it's not very easy to tell what phase
No,
you're in.
no,
like,
no,
I
no.
don't know when you've been in love. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
in Liggi, were you in love or you were not in love?
I just
But-
told you that was complete delusion.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, for me,
Yeah.
it's very hard to tell.
Yeah.
Or when I listen to Barso, I don't know what mood
Yeah.
you're in because all of your songs just make the listener feel really, really just happy
Yeah. Yeah.
and just joyful.
Yeah.
And like, there is a feeling like I want to just like start swaying my arms and like jump. My dance moves on your music is just jumping. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
really
yeah.
no step.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what your music kind of makes the listener feel. But
Yeah.
what is it for you?
The
through all
intent,
your songs.
the intent is also similar to what you just
Yeah.
said. I think I would always like encourage people to just feel like that's the whole
No,
point.
but what
of
are
it.
you feeling when you've written these songs?
I
and
feel
whatever?
like I'm in some sort of like a reaction mode, right? When we make art, we're sort of like
Yeah.
it's a reaction to our reality.
Yeah, so what was Udd Gaye?
So Udd Gaye for me, I mean, this story I've spoken about a lot. So I was in 5th standard when I like had the biggest crush, right, on my life, on my dear friend, and she was awesome. She is awesome. But it took me about 10 years. It took me 10 years to like that thought was marinating in my head. And Udd Gaye I wrote about that time in my life.
Right.
It's fifth standard. And I was just like, this is the first time like I actively
So you're
fell
blown
in-
away. Is that what
Yes,
it meant?
yeah, that's the feeling. That feeling, that childhood like intense emotion that's captured in that song. So
Yeah.
that was Udd Gaye for me. I spoke about Liggi a little bit. That was just fantasy. I mean, Udd Gaye was also a fantasy,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
But it's more exuberant.
Yeah,
and like
it was
the
still
feeling.
closest to an experience, right?
Rose tinted.
Yeah, rose tinted fully.
Yeah.
The
And
other
what is
songs.
Barso?
Barso. This actually ties into a slightly longer story, so I don't know if you want to jump into that.
Yeah, of course.
This is around the time I was dropping out of school.
Oh.
So one of the things that helped me also, I think, transition out at the time at DPS, the annual day was lined up, and I think my mom asked me if I was interested in like writing music for the, for annual day, and this is like class nursery to like 10th, and I spent a lot of time doing that, and that also helped me like sort of like transition out. So Barso was one of the songs that I wrote.
Oh wow! Did you perform it in school?
The kids did. The kids
Really?
like danced to it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking 2013, 2014 when like what I wrote about 70 songs. Barso was one of them.
Wow.
Barso was one of them, sorry. Chalo Chale was one of them.
Ah.
So 2 songs I wrote around that time. So yeah, those melodies are from back then. Yeah, that's the
But
story
every
there.
melody has a time, right? Like when it releases, it can just sit with us for
Barso
so
took
long.
Barso.
Yeah.
It took 5 years. It took about
Yeah.
5 years to release. I took a long time with that. I'm thinking about like Sage. Sage was, I think, like before Sage actually.
Sage
Jeet.
is lovely though. I
Hey,
really enjoy Sage.
Thank you. But that also came a little later. I can talk about Jeet real quick. So Jeet happened right after Udd Gaye. And Jeet was essentially like the celebration that I was accounting for. There was a win right after Udd Gaye. So that was like a direct like a reply to, my life, my reflection at that time after Udd Gaye. And that came out also like about what, like a few months, like 6-7 months, right? Like it half a year later. It's insane. Because Udd Gaye had just come out and everyone's like, oh my God, okay, this is, it's very real and I'm looking at people going crazy. But then in the first 3 months itself, I think I was the expectation started setting in, right? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, you have this hit now, follow it up.
Yeah.
What do we expect
What's
from
he gonna do
What's
now?
he gonna do now? And
Yeah.
that sort of like starts like I'm just like in real time looking at people getting really anxious for me. I'm like, why do you care? Like, let me take my time because I have never like because I just mentioned right. So it was never output oriented. So I'm taking my sweet time to make music. But it was also really scary because like I'm looking at people like just bundle up around me. Jeet took a little bit of time, but I'm glad. Like I had to like get out of that and just be like, no, I am not here to impress you. I'm not here to give you this. As much as I'm so grateful for you to enjoy my music, I'm not making it for you.
Right.
I am doing it because I find it interesting. And then I hope to share with people in the hopes that you will like it. So when finally Jeet came out, like what 6-7 months later, I was like, okay, it could work, could not work. It did decently well. It did
Yeah.
fine. So that's that phase of my life. That was right after Udd Gaye. We still like Liggi, Sage. Like I think all of these songs then started like.
And then there's a song dedicated to your mum.
Yeah, that was the last album I put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a full album dedicated to her.
What was her reaction to it?
We wrote that album together.
Really?
We wrote that album together. I was in Goa. I was living in Goa at the time. So Mama had school holidays, summer vacation. So we spent that whole month in Goa. And every day we would like sit, we would have conversations every day about like what I was going through, what she was going through. And essentially, these conversations with chai, lunch would end up with me in the night writing melodies.
Right.
So I was like getting inspired by these conversations in the daytime, and in the night I would write the melodies. And then the next day, Mama would help me with the lyrics. She would write a lot of the lyrics on the album. So
Is she on any of the songs, like her vocals?
she has sung on the title track.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, she's there on the title track. Yeah, she's sang a little bit. Yeah.
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
Did that give you some kind of like a satisfaction after you released it? Like, did it feel like
I'm telling you,
you've given back to your mom what she gave you?
I think the output, specifically with this project, was so mini, so micro, because if I could get a chance to, and I'm just still so fresh off it, just been
Yeah.
like 2 years, but that process, that month, I cannot like get that out of my head, right?
Yeah.
That process, I will do anything to like just even get a glimpse of again,
Wow.
because I know it can never be replicated,
Yeah.
right? And as I'm growing older, the value is only going higher,
Yeah.
right? So that output is so little in my head, because that time that we shared writing it, that process was so insane. And I think if we can, I think I sort of like have made it like a little thing in my head that as long as the process is winning, and no matter how crazy the output is,
Yeah.
like the process for me should be the most exciting, and I should remember that, like even with Udd Gaye, like whatever happened with the output, till the time that song became that song is so fun for me.
Yeah.
Right? And that entire process is so like crazy how I'm coming up with the last few melodies the night before the release, night before the music video shoot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. So all of that makes me like remember that more. I think because I'm remembering that more, the value of output anyway is a little low. But with Mimmi,
Yeah.
I don't even see it, because
Yeah.
it's my mom.
It's very sublime. It's really,
Yeah.
really lovely. I really enjoyed that
Thank you,
song. Okay, so you speak a lot about your process, and that makes me very curious to understand what a day in your life kind of looks like. When you are about to release a song, let's go to that process, not the time when you're taking a break after a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what does that time look like? Say 2 weeks before a release, or
Very anxiety inducing. I think around a release, but also depending on, I think I like to, I've realized that I work a lot better when I have like when I'm reaching
Deadline.
when I reach the end of the, my last few days is when I'm the most productive.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. So that's also why it's a little anxiety inducing, because I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
The last 4 days, I'm just going haywire. But the thing is, because I'm like doing everything on my own, so it doesn't look like it. It's all in my head. Like I'm going crazy in my head, but like I'm just in front of the laptop, zoned in. So that's like me before like what? A week before every release.
So it's literally just you. What
It's
does
just
your
me.
team look like? What are your
It's just me.
collaborators? How does it
I've
work?
worked very little with I've had very few collaborations. So it's mainly like, even if you look at my discography, it's mostly just like all of like solo tracks.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It has its pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I wish I had a band to also share this anxiety with.
That actually is very, very important. I feel like when I'm making a collection, I really need my people around
Of course,
me,
yeah.
like my other designers, to say like, yuck, that's shit, and that's disgusting, and that's horrible, and that's, I need that feedback. So that's insane to do it
a little,
alone.
yeah.
But what about your videos? Because you do a lot of storytelling, and Liggi for me it's top, because I remember that my collection was coming out, and I reached out to Udd Gaye after I saw the video. I couldn't afford her at that time to do it. But I loved that video so much, because it
She's
was
awesome.
so fresh. It was just
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah.
And you had your blonde hair in that.
I have a, yep.
Yeah. We won't talk about
We
that.
won't talk about it. Yeah.
It's there. It's your body of work. It's your legacy. So we'll leave it at that. Okay.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So are you a part of the storytelling process?
Very little. I think that's where that's actually the truest sense of collaboration we've done. So all the very epic people that I've met on this journey so far. Dar being one of them, Rima being one of them. Rima
Yeah.
did Udd Gaye. Dar is responsible for Liggi, Sage, like. So I think one of the reasons why also people were really looking at it and be like, every video was like, oh, the visual and audio are like sort of like marrying.
Very,
right?
very married to each
Right?
other.
But that's
Yeah.
also because I think I took a back seat.
I agree.
Right? Like I was like, Da, this is your project. It's your film. Right? And same with Rima and everybody else we worked with. Like that complete creative freedom is there in terms of like, hey, the way you are listening to my audio is how the fans are also listening.
Yeah.
Right? So your interpretation of it needs to be true to you.
I fully agree with
Yeah.
that. Like
Right.
when I get, for my shoots, when I get a
Yeah.
creative director on board, etc., a lot of people think that I would be very controlling on a set, but I'm fully hands off.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
fully hands
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Sometimes it hasn't worked in my favor, but I just feel like they know how to do that job better
Thank
than
you.
I do,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and if I'm bringing them on board and I'm telling them, no, but like she has to stand there only, like she has to do that,
Yeah.
it would kind of ruin the whole thing.
It will, yeah,
So yeah, I like that you're being very honest about that. It's
Yeah.
very, very crucial that we trust our collaborators. Otherwise, let's not
100%.
call them that.
Yeah,
you know.
true, very true.
Um,
I think for us, it was always like, again, like the way we look at music also, Rahul and I, we have our sessions where we listen to ideas.
Right.
And whoever we reach out, whatever director we're reaching out to, first they need to like the stuff that obviously that's
Yeah.
the given. That's a given. But the second is always, let's not do a call till you come up with something. You need to have that fresh take on this.
Yeah.
I don't even want to tell you what I was going through.
Correct.
Right? The audio is my story.
Right.
And that way I think like because that freedom is there, right? So that's why the freshness is sort of like intact.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can be
absolutely.
controlling on the audio front,
Yeah.
but not on any other place.
Yeah, because that's your storytelling.
yeah.
So let's talk about your lyrics because they're not always like very easy
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Because a lot of the words that you
Yeah.
use are made up.
Yep.
And there are a lot of trolls out there
Of
who
course,
are
yeah.
very happy to like
Yeah.
point that out
Yeah.
and tell you that okay that means that he's not a serious artist, because
Yeah,
people do
yeah.
that with my work also.
Of course,
It's
yeah.
absolutely fine.
Of course, yeah.
How do you kind of react to that? Do you feel like you have to explain yourself or you don't bother with it?
I think people sometimes might like not understand that when you don't take yourself seriously,
Yeah.
it might look like you don't take your art seriously.
Right.
Which is not the same thing. Like I think it's important to like have that distinction where I could take myself not seriously at all,
Yeah.
but like it could be the opposite with my art.
Right.
And that's I think something that people might get it wrong, but it's okay because again we're not taking ourselves seriously, so
Yeah.
it's fine if what people think. With lyric side of things, I think it's just interesting for me to again like do things that are not conventional. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like if I just sing Hindi the way it's been taught to us, which is fine. Like I'm not a purist. I will not do that because it's not exciting.
Yeah.
I need to sing Hindi the way I find it interesting, and that could
Yeah.
be anything.
I think that's so
Right?
cool.
Yeah.
I love how you made a meaning out of Liggi and like that's
Yeah. And it's crazy. The story, I just want to be left with fun stories. Like it's
Yeah.
simple. In my head, it's just because the first word that hits me when I save a project, that's the name of the song.
Yeah.
It's meaningless, but what I also find, but it's meaningful for me. Not
Yeah.
in a way.
because you're also trusting your flow state.
Yeah.
You're not questioning your flow state.
I'm not
You're not saying, oh, but that's just
Yeah.
like lame. But you're
In-
saying,
yeah.
ooh, that's nice.
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah.
In the world of like yes, it doesn't meet the understanding of how you would like expect to be like, okay, a song needs to be a certain
Yeah.
way. Like there needs to be meaning in a way that we know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, but if it connects to me on an emotional level, that's where I derive my meaning.
Yeah. I think
you
it
know?
is so easy to see a piece of art
Yeah.
and tell instinctively if there is a soul in it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there can be like brilliantly written pieces of
Yeah,
music, but
yeah.
like there are some people, and I'm honestly like when I'm scrolling on Instagram, there'll be probably 2-3 people who are doing acoustic versions of many songs.
Yeah, yeah.
But one person will give me goosebumps and the other doesn't. Like technically both sound the same.
Yeah.
And I think that is where the soul in it. Like you are saying,
Yeah.
but I'm really telling you a story.
Yeah.
I'm really like, this is a story, and like that comes through, and I think that's wonderful. And it's, people will call it brave, and people will call it all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the only way you know how to be, and it's the only way you know how to express.
It's conformist behavior to try and make sense of everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, one, I think as a consumer, we should like focus on the feeling.
Yeah.
You are consuming music.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the feeling, I think. And as a creator, it is important to the highest order to focus on the feeling. Right? Because, and that should be priority.
Yeah.
Right? Meaningless, is purely something that we like put ourselves in a box and be like, hey, we're trying to make sense of something.
Yeah.
Right? But if it is making you dance, if it is making you do things, if it is connecting to you, you're crying to it, then it should not matter if it is like making complete sense, in terms of like, how's the lyric, how's the grammar on this, how's like, all of that is just our, I don't know, teacher minds just telling us that, like how we were programmed in school.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
We're just like,
I think that's why dropping out of school was a great idea for you.
It was a great idea. I wish I did it a little earlier before trigonometry though. I wish I did it before trig. Yeah, oh God. Oh
But
my
okay, do you feel like there is a formula though? Because you said now, and I also heard you use the word product quite a few times.
Yeah.
You're not calling it songs. You're not calling music. You're saying my product has to be good. My product.
Yeah.
And you're calling yourself a brand.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
So that is where the business side kind of creeps in and
Yeah.
it says, okay,
Yeah.
great, you're an artist.
Yeah. But it is a business.
But it is a business
It
at
is a
the end of the
business,
day.
yeah.
And then you're also collaborating, or you're getting a lot of people on board. Where I said I couldn't afford her to direct my my film, but you
Yeah.
could, which also is clearly that you need to be an artist that is very, very sensible. Also, in a way that I need to do certain gigs, I need to get certain amount of like money in and funds in. I have a team, I have salaries to pay, I have rent to pay, I have all of that.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a learned skill, or you were automatically really good at like making financially sane decisions?
I don't think any of these were sane decisions.
Okay.
They were definitely like very, very risky. But I think it also ties into, I mean, I'm growing older, I'm learning more, but I still stick by this though, that I think the best business is based on, if it's just based on the right ideals of why you're doing what you're doing, especially with art. I mean, I can only speak for art even a little bit, because I think the connection with emotions could result in the best business, right? And it is the best business, right? If anything, we can't reverse engineer it. And let's not try to, for me, it is very important to make sure that I'm true to myself, right? And I'm giving my 100%. My belief is a byproduct.
Right.
And then it's about like taking that leap.
Yeah, but we know of a lot of artists.
Yeah.
Who probably are talented.
Yes.
But aren't able to be commercially successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right? What would your advice be to these folks from your own experience?
Yeah.
Of course, you must have made a lot of strategic calls as well. Like you would have decided to take a lot of gigs up that weren't really exciting. Probably weren't well, but you had to go up and do it, or you had to say yes, so you had to do some ad films maybe and stuff like that.
Of course, yeah.
What would your advice be, strictly based on your own experience? Because you said after Udd Gaye's success, you decided to take some time off before the next song.
Yeah.
So in that time, what did you do to ensure that there was money coming in?
Yeah. I think, but that's the thing, right? Like, I think I'd reached a certain point, and then I could like afford to do that also.
Right.
I think till that point, I think it's important to like do a lot of things also, I would suggest, that might not be in complete favor. Right. But I mean, that's how when you climb up the ranks, it gets, things work like that, and a good hefty amount of support from the right set of people around you is I mean, that's my privilege and I acknowledge it. Emotionally and financially for me also, I think, because I didn't have to worry about that at an early stage. I think that also sort of keeps me a little bit in a bubble, and I'm talking out of that. I didn't have to think about bills in the same manner, so I don't know if I'm the right person to advise on that front. But in my journey, I think I just lucked out a little bit with the right set of people who also, like even my management, I think
Right.
Rahul acts as that person who takes those strategic calls. But in our discussions, it's still very much, are we excited about this?
Right.
If we are, and if this is something that we care about, let's figure out how we can make this happen. We've had that conversation from day one. Things weren't the same when I started off with him. But even today, I think that's our primary conversation.
So, at what age did you become self-sufficient, where you didn't have to rely on your parents?
At a very young age. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd started earning even before Udd Gaye. So like I was doing gigs across the country as a like young in DJ.
Right.
So I mean, by the time I was like 18, 19, I was doing okay.
You know that feeling when you rip off a cheap nipple cover and instantly regret all your life decisions? No exaggeration. Well, that's about to change. Nipposh is here to change the game. No adhesive, no irritation, no pain, no redness, and the best part is that you can use these for up to 300 times. So ditch the disposable drama and switch to Nipposh. So we've spoken about your journey
Yeah.
and how it's kind of built up to the success that you've seen so far.
Yeah.
It's been full of originality, a lot of like fearless, stubborn, clear thinking.
Sure. Yeah.
But now I want to talk about, if you can share with me, what has been the lowest phase of your career, or like a time that you've had.
The delusion has helped me in the past to deal with the lows really well. Right? To a point, I think I just convinced myself that it's not a low. Right? And so I actually am unable to think of a time where I felt like I'd like lost hope, But I think in the last 2 years, since, the breakdown of the
old structures.
I think I've found myself feel the lows for the first time in a very weird way. Maybe I must have felt lows at a very early stage that I can't really recall. But in the last 2 years, I've felt myself really feel the lows, which is so important, I think. I can't give you, I don't know if I can think of a moment where I felt the lowest.
Right.
But I can tell you that I've felt much lower, or maybe lows for the first time in the last 2 years. It's
But these
insane.
are personal lows.
Personal lows. I think all of my career stuff is very much a reflection of my personal life. So I find myself like my music is essentially my diary journal.
Right.
It's my diary entry.
Yeah.
So whatever is going on, I find myself like, writing. But the craziest thing is that when I would feel low in the past, like say 10 years ago, 6 years ago, I would immediately start writing a song. Like I'd feel bad, I'd feel depressed, I'd feel sad. I'd just find my laptop.
What were some of these songs?
I think Sage was, I remember, it's a very sad song, irrespective of the video. I remember I was very anxious this one night. And that melody is essentially my anxiety, right? I just like wrote that melody while I was like feeling very anxious and very like all over the place. But because I would like immediately have this cathartic process of sorts, I'd also lose some of that sad,
Yeah.
This is like, I now have a melody that is like, I channeled it out, So because of this, I don't know how much of it I processed,
Right. How much of it you sat in? Like,
Saturn, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the last 2 years I've not put out a song. Like
Wow.
after Mimmi, then thankfully I'm in that position that I can like not make music for 2 years and it's fine. Very lucky again. I just have to like keep counting, my blessings. But because of that, it was so important for me to sit into my feelings, sit in with my feelings, right? I didn't make music.
What did you do then in the 2 years?
I was focusing on being, I don't know, 27-year-old, 26-year-old me.
And what were you doing in that time? Like, were there any practices? Was there any like studying,
I did a bit of traveling.
therapy?
A bit of traveling.
Okay.
A bit of traveling. I've still not really like got myself to like properly go to therapy, but just I think self-therapizing to the
Yeah.
to the max, being an idiot that way. But that, and I think for me it was more about just looking at my life and questioning everything, and then I didn't even realize that introspection took so long. I didn't even realize 2 years went by.
Yeah.
You know, and I was so engrossed in it.
But there was
Yeah.
no pressure from like your team
Like
or
I
anyone.
said, very lucky. I have the best team in the whole world. Like I think Rahul and the team, everybody just I think understand that okay, everything is circling the music. So and I will not put out or like send a product which is not like close to even like authentic.
Right.
And for authenticity and for me to be true to myself, I need to first be in touch with myself.
Right.
And last 2 years, I think I wasn't as much. So we sort of went on a full pause. And I did a lot of shows. I think in the last 2 years, I've traveled, done a lot of shows.
You just had a really big show in
Yeah.
Mumbai. Everybody from my office was there.
Hey.
I didn't go because I'm antisocial. As I
Fair.
said. But everybody was
I wouldn't
there.
go to my own shows.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But did a lot of shows, a lot of traveling. I spent a lot of time with folks. And really just, I think it was an introspective period.
Right. And then how do you know you're ready to write?
When I
the
started
next
writing music again, I think I started coming back into my senses a little bit. And in this period, right, I think it was important in questioning every little detail. Started acting like my new sense of like making music. Does that make sense? I don't know if that
Yeah.
like when I'm like working on music and writing stuff, I think that's therapeutic for me. But for the first time, I started like questioning myself. Usually what happens is I write music and then I question myself. I write music and then I get an understanding, oh, this is what you were going through.
Right.
Okay. You know, and then I sort of like move on.
Yeah.
You know?
It's retrospective in that sense.
Yes. Here it was more introspective where I'm like going through it and then I'm questioning myself, and it's so hard to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't channel that energy and you just have that scary energy that you have to face,
Yeah.
that is in a very weird way much harder than having to just like, you know.
Yeah.
I used to think is the greatest thing to channel. I think it's maybe I'm in a point where I'm thinking it's bigger to like sit with that feeling,
Yeah.
you know, and just feel sad.
Does competition affect you? Like, do you experience jealousy, envy?
I don't want to set myself up as a monk or anything, but I think it's also my narcissism. But somewhere I just feel like I'm not in the competition.
Right.
You know, like I feel like I'm not like competing with anyone.
Because there are a lot of people who started replicating your style.
Sure, yeah.
Does that bother you?
That in fact like adds to the narcissism. No,
Yeah.
It just like gives me more points that hey, look, they're trying to like replicate you. So somewhere I think I don't know if I want to pride myself over this, but I know that it doesn't affect me because somewhere I think I have the sauce.
Yeah.
You know, I have the sauce, and I will. But the reason why I don't take too much pride in it because I don't want to like get too full of myself.
I also read somewhere
yeah.
that, a lot of these artists, like I don't want to name them because I might get hate because I'm thinking
Yeah.
something and the truth is something else.
Sure.
But the very, very senior artists who are really amazing.
Yeah.
And they're coming out with a lot of music, especially like bands,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I read somewhere that the music just leaves the musician
Yeah.
after a certain
How
age
does-
or
yeah,
a time.
yeah,
and then
yeah.
no matter what you make, it's just left
True.
you.
Oh,
Do you think
that's-
that's true? Is that a fear for you?
Might start thinking about it after you mention it now, but it's a big one.
Yeah.
Because I think it has so much to do with how you are as a person, right? Like I feel like, but it's a risk that we have to take, right?
Yeah.
In my evolution as a person, I might have to risk like losing it also, losing the output that is maybe here right now. Because like for the matter, like I don't know if people love my music now the way they loved the earlier stuff. You know, I'm okay with that. But what will I be okay if I completely lose music? I don't even know. I don't
But
know.
then when you say the music just leaves the musician,
Yeah.
like, so that means, do you think music is something that's outside of us? Like art is something creation, the ability to create is something that's outside of us?
I think I can counter that statement a little bit though. Is it that music leaves the artist, or good music leaves or authentic. For me, I'm like, if I'm being myself at all stages of my life, so should my music also, no?
Yeah.
In that with that logic, I think I will be able to be making good music, but I don't know if it's good for everybody.
Yeah, relevant.
Relevant music, right? It could be like interesting
Yeah.
for some people, could be really bad for some people. Maybe when we start looking at music from a POV of maybe a business
Yeah.
completely, or like this becomes like a factory of sorts. Like I need to put out music. I need to
Yeah.
put out like a song for this season. I need to like, I need a love song ballad, like
Yeah.
all of that. I think maybe with that thinking, it can affect the authenticity of the song.
How do you
know?
not, how are you not faced with that though? Like those pressures are there on me like insanely. Like, okay, wedding season is coming and
Yeah.
this season is coming and all of that. Like you don't deal with any of that. Is there a reason why you've not signed on with a record label?
I think the reason is I think we need to get independent of all of our pressures and expectations, right? And one of the things that we know in this world is money, right? So it's important to get that and have that. So you can then be free to do 10 things. I think me and my team were able to sort of structurize a way, and that's where I think power of being an independent artist, I think, comes in a little bit. And I'm again very lucky. I think it's also not a common case. It's rare to have this kind of like situation, but really owning all of your music, knowing that when everything goes away, you should still be making money off of your art.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, and it's one of the reasons why I've not wanted to sign with a label.
Is there a reason you've stayed away from Bollywood so far?
I wouldn't say I've stayed away. I have not found the right project, and
Right.
we have also worked with a few people. But like I think just waiting for a right project. I'm all ears.
Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe soon, someday.
Yeah.
Next month, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do artists really make money? Because I heard somewhere that, especially for playback singers for films,
Yeah.
you earn in royalty. You don't get paid upfront when you go in to record a song.
Sure.
Is that, I'm confused about that.
I actually wouldn't know much myself because I've not worked with the label that closely. But I think I can maybe speak about a little bit about what it means to really make money completely off of your catalog,
Right.
which is like, say, on the digital front, but also from when you're performing it live.
Yeah.
There are other like revenue streams, but I think those should be enabled for the artist, and artist only. And that's the front I can speak on, honestly. I don't have a lot of info on what it's like to like sign rights, because there are so many deals in place. The amount of like it depends on how much they're investing in you. Like there's IPRS, they'll make sure that if the song is being played like radio airplay or anywhere, we get like.
And you are able to manage all of this with a really small team. What is your team size?
We have so Rahul's my main guy. Jeet is the newest member. It's been about what, 2 years now. Been 2 years with Jeet.
That's ancient in Gen
And
Z lingo.
That exactly. And Jeet is handling everything on tour. Yeah, Jeet is handling everything on tour. We have Meher making sure we have all the brand stuff like in place. So yeah, it's like a team of 3 and 4. And yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's insane.
And then like I mean, then if I have to speak a little bit about my live side of things, we have Rishik, who makes sure that he's all of the visuals for my digital social media and everything, photography, videos and everything. That's him. Then I have somebody on the live visuals. I have somebody on for the lights.
But are they full time or
Yeah,
are
they're
they
on with me for every show. So it's like
Right.
about like a team of 6, 7 that we're going city to city.
amazing?
Right. So that's my live front. So
Right.
live front is a different team. And then we have like everyday management, which is we need to make sure that we have our other revenue streams like active. Like I think the dream was always to like remain like unbothered. I know it sounds a little, but the idea is to be a little detached.
Beautiful.
Right? The
Yeah.
idea was always like, even as a kid, like when I was making music, if I were to like think about how my meals are being taken care of, then I don't know how much time I would spend
Yeah,
on, you know, and maybe I could have also, but then my association with music would be a little different, and which is also fine. But like I got lucky that way, and I only needed to and got a chance to just focus on the music. So even today, my understanding is that okay, that safety net needs to be like present, and my team understands it. My folks are obviously the people who taught me this, and I just need to focus on how my state of mind is.
Yeah.
State of mind. Sorry, I lost words there. My state of mind is really important to like maintain, and I think money is obviously the most
So your
important.
day is focused on just you're the art and the artist for yourself.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The music is just like, it's just something that happens on the go.
You know, but
It's a byproduct.
It's a byproduct. But what's crazy is
Yeah.
now this now ties into that older question about like finding purpose and like not having an anchor. All of that renovation period is kind of like getting done, I think, a little bit. And I'm realizing that I'm not just going to be responsible for myself. So
Right.
while now I'm understanding a little bit about myself and I need to do this, well, I need to also now take care of another person
Yeah.
that I'm going to share my life with, and then another person. And then so I think that maintaining my state of mind in accordance with another person.
Yeah, complete accountability of
Right?
self. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing that you
Yeah.
have that clarity.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Pretty bad at it, but yeah.
Okay, and what would be your highest high if you had to like put your finger to it? It would be you at 18 with multiplier.
My highs are in the process. I'm not gonna lie. The highs I will account for like when an idea hits me, and I'm just the most excited. I think I don't know if I'm that excited about anything else.
Right.
Like sleep comes close. You know, sleep definitely comes close. But
Yeah.
I am so excited when an idea hits me. It's because it's like a new. It's endless possibilities, right? It's this new idea that could change anything or
Yeah.
not, but like the fact that it has potential.
It
to.
has potential.
I
That's
think-
so
I
true.
think
That's the exciting
Yeah,
thing,
that's
the
exciting.
potential of anything.
Potential of anything. Yeah.
So now the indie music scene in India, it's thriving. Like
Yeah.
the way it was in the 90s. Like I really miss that time. And now
Yeah.
you see that a lot of that is happening, especially with Coke Studio and a lot of
Exciting time. Yeah.
yeah, very exciting things happening.
Yeah.
It's rivaling like Bollywood music.
Yeah.
And in fact, those guys are picking up so many originals now
True.
and putting them in the films.
True.
And you have also been one of the most streamed artists on Spotify
Yeah,
India.
yeah.
I think 21, 22.
Yeah. 2021. Yeah.
So how do you perceive this shift in the consumer behavior that has happened in recent times?
I think it's amazing that we're in this day and age where like you can be an indie artist. You do not need a label. You don't need Bollywood. You don't need like a factory setting to your music.
Right.
Right. And you can walk in with the internet and explore, reach out to the few people. And I think in a very weird way, my start sort of happened like that. Because when I kicked off, I remember like sort of playing manager to myself, right? Without realizing what that means. But my whole thing was that I think the understanding is simple. You are writing music, that's your product. How do you then sell it to people?
Yeah.
And in order to get a manager, first I had to like message a bunch of management companies and like text a lot of people. And that was sort of like me playing manager, right?
Yeah.
Letting to even appoint a manager, I first needed to sell myself to people. And what I may be trying to say is that this sort of built a DIY factor within me. Like I learned a lot of things to do by myself. And that's, I think, the crux of being independent. Right? Like the fact that you should be able to do all things.
All tasks.
All tasks
Yeah.
that you then later delegate.
Yeah.
Right? I think getting somebody to delegate those things from point one, the understanding of the vision is better when you know all those things.
It's also a handicap because
Yeah.
then you're so dependent on somebody
yeah.
else.
True.
Yeah.
Like if I need myself to reach a certain point, right?
Yeah.
I should at least know these things the tools that I need to like get to reach that.
100%.
And then as you climb up the ranks, you can start delegating that job just so your state of mind stays intact. But I think I maybe was connecting it to the whole idea of
Very
being.
dependent. And you think Spotify and all of that has really helped indie music?
Right. Now you have platforms where,
Yeah.
discoverability, say what you want about Reels, but that's also a place where people are discovering music left, right,
Yeah.
and center, right?
And have Reels changed the way you make a song?
No, I don't
Because I
think.
was hearing somewhere that you put like the chorus right at the start, which is going to get picked up by people who make reels instead of like having a really.
No,
No?
I don't think I've like that. I have not done. I think for me, I do adapt with the way people consume music as we all are, but I don't think I specifically like format the music according to like how the platforms might want it.
Yeah.
But if someone were to as well, I think that's fine because I think like it's become so accessible today. Like we
Yeah.
just have that platform ready for us, and people can do a lot more by themselves. You have internet at your disposal. You know, I learned everything on YouTube. Every single thing. YouTube is my real guru.
Yeah.
I've learned everything on YouTube. So I think it's a great time to be an artist. Honestly, like the
Right.
fact that we have so many tools that can help us. I think it's just getting easier to reach that thing that we have in our heads.
Yeah.
When in our early 20s, I can imagine it must have been so much harder one
Yeah.
generation up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because every generation, every 20-year-old wants to say something.
Yeah.
But today, a 20-year-old has so many things like at their like disposal. The con could be that thing we spoke about earlier. This so also then just gives so much attention to competition and
Yeah.
stuff. That's a con, but that's a pro and con of every like.
Yeah. So talking about tools, what is
Yeah.
your view on AI? And like there are so many people who are sitting threatened, and then there are a lot of people who are just like, no, it can't replace me.
I think AI again, like I've not used a lot of AI, but I know like Rahul uses a bunch. Like he tells me about how helpful it is in terms of like just information hunt and all of that.
No, but for the
That's
music
what, yeah.
industry, what do you think?
For so I haven't
Implications.
applied it as much, but in theory, I think it should be great, right? Because it's just another leap in technology for us to like make things easier. I think it's another tool, right? That in theory it should help me make my music faster,
Right.
right? But my conversation is that it's powerful enough to generate pattern and create a melody of its own. My issue with that is that at least the ideation power should be with
Yeah.
the artist. Let it do the job for you. Let it finish, like execute it. Let it be hands for you. That being said, I've not actively applied AI, but I do see reels where people are using AI to mimic my own songs.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
sound like me. And I'm just like, what is happening? Which is insane.
Yeah,
I think
they're
that-
putting Mohammad Rafi's voice
Yeah.
on like Sonu Nigam's voice.
Crazy.
And
Crazy.
I'm like, that's crazy.
It's-
So
it-
do you feel
actually
like it
insane.
can replace artists and musicians?
I think the component that we were talking about earlier, which is soul,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you can replicate that,
Yeah.
and I think that is what really carries a song, right?
Yeah.
It carries a product for that
Absolutely.
matter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the day they can start computing feelings, then we're gone. then we lose a job for
Yeah,
sure.
hopefully we're dead by then.
Yeah, we'll be dead by then.
What do we do without feelings
Right,
right
yeah,
now?
yeah.
We don't want that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you seem to have a really like strong personal sense of style. Today you're very cash. I guess it's weekend
Yeah.
energy, but
Yeah.
I've seen your whole like.
Yeah.
I've also seen you wear a sari.
Yeah.
Of course, your kurta phase is really popular,
Yeah.
but like so are your saris. So
Yeah.
talk about your relationship with fashion.
Similar to my music, I think it was important for me to live my wants in a
Yeah.
weird way. Like the things that I care about, the things that I'm excited about, I need to also live it, right? So the music that I was making also was then directly correlated to the kurtas that I was wearing. Because for me, kurtas is a symbol of like when I was learning Drupad, and the time when I was learning Indian classical, kurtas, like kurta pajama was the uniform, right? So when I started like wanted to be like a DJ and like incorporate these elements from the West, I was incorporating them. I wasn't fully like doing that.
Right.
So sorry. And my music also, I was actively like it was a infusion of sorts. So was with my style, right? Like, so now I'm wearing kurtas with like Letterman jackets and like bomber jackets and like torn jeans and like, sneakers and everything, right? That's the whole street value sort of like came into
Yeah.
the picture. But it was all circled around the kurta. Kurta was the soul, the center of it,
Yeah.
right? So same with my music. I think the center is very Indian, very desi, but everything around it is sort of like the format is from the West, and I've like it's just all over the place. So yeah, that's why also I dress the way I do, especially at shows. Like you'll never see me wear anything but a kurta.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And what about the sari? How did that happen?
This is new information just for your podcast. We are essentially planning a kurta sari tour.
Wow,
right?
what's
and
that?
and it's in the name. Like the idea is that this is going to be uniform for everybody that attends and the people
Oh,
working.
really?
Yeah. We did like a bit of a soft launch on my birthday, I think last year in Pune, where we
Oh.
asked everybody to wear kurta and sari.
Oh.
So the reason why I wore a sari was because I wanted to play that character who wore both the kurta and sari.
That is so cool.
But this is still like, well, it's under the wraps. It's out now, I guess.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, yeah.
Okay, wow, that's exciting. I'm going to look forward to that one.
Yeah.
Music has the power to influence societies. Like I used to tell my friend when he was DJing, I was like, music is legitimately that one thing that can save the world. Like it can
Yeah.
actually heal
Yeah.
the world
For
in
sure,
the sense. Like it's so powerful.
Yeah.
How do you see your music contributing to the fabric of, the world, or like socio-cultural issues that we're facing right now? Like, do
Yeah.
you feel like it has a responsibility or the
Yeah.
potential to
Yeah.
do that?
100%. In fact, I don't even know if I am the best judge of that, but I think I'm not going to lie. In all honesty, my priority is that I am putting out a song that I am in touch with. So I've always thought about how if I'm in touch with myself, I'm weirdly in touch with the world, right? And a lot of information that I might not know about the world, I could learn through some internalization, right? And so with all that internalizing and जो भी हो रहा है अंदर वो गाना, when that song comes out, I do hope for it to, cause an impact and it to speak to people
Yeah.
who might be going through something that I'm going through. But that's just a hope that I can have, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I strategically think about like a change of sorts.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, how much can I change myself, right? And there are few emotions that all of us face. I play with those emotions.
Yeah.
And who interprets it in like their way and like how they're going to, that's
I think that's lovely how you're saying it.
Yeah.
Like I often tell my mom, and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much happening in the
Yeah.
world, like Iran, like this is
Yeah.
happening and all that.
Yeah.
Like it's so overwhelming. And she's
so
like,
annoying.
if you
Yeah.
can help 5 people who you can count on your fingertips, like even
Yeah.
5 people,
Yeah.
and you do right by them and you probably make them happy and
Yeah.
care for them, that is your job as a human being done.
Yeah.
So often we really overwhelm ourselves with I need to save the world
Yeah,
and I need to
yeah.
put out, that is not a responsibility. Like as you said, the responsibility is to work on yourself. And I think that if you're working on yourself, the soul will come through your song and it will probably help a handful or maybe
Yeah.
like an entire generation. That is not for us to control.
I'm telling you, I think in the last 2 years, I've realized that I used to be that person, that I would put others first, right? I think more I'm realizing is that sometimes that was also me escaping myself.
Yeah.
And in order to help people in this facade that I want to change others.
Yeah.
That was just because I didn't want to see myself for what I was. So I think if we can just build a little bit of change within ourselves, I think that will reflect in the music
100%.
and then people will connect to it and that could bring a change in their lives.
100%.
So it's a domino effect of sorts, right? So yeah, I believe in that now at least. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Now, you started working very, very early on. In therapy, like my therapist told me, she said, Shivika, what I love about yourself is that you started working, is that you started working very early in your life. Like you
Yeah.
started working when you were 18.
Yeah.
But that is also something that I don't love about you because your
Yeah.
identity is so much to do with
True,
your
true.
work.
Yeah, yeah. At a very early age, yeah.
Yeah, and work is really tied to a lot of
Yeah.
external factors
Yeah.
and the success of that. And you started working very early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially creating something that puts all of who you are out there for the world to see
Yeah.
and consume and judge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think that impacts your understanding of your own identity?
It's been a journey. It's been a
Yeah.
journey. I think it wasn't, it was very scary at first because I didn't realize how much I associated myself with musician Ritviz, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think with the brand, I was just that. You know, after every show, I'm just, Instagram was my world at some point, right? Because it just, I needed to know how people are receiving me. I'm, I'm constantly also thinking about, you know, what is it next that I'm supposed to do. And as much as I can say that, yes, it's the process and everything, but we do also care. We care about the product. We are humans. You know, it does matter how it, like, we can give it lower precedence over, like, but it's still there.
It's still
So
there.
I think the change started happening once I realized that, oh, I'm actually like attached to this to a point where I'm thinking this is my identity.
Yeah.
Right. So is when I think I started to build a personal life. Right. In theory, back then when I started doing this, I just thought that, okay, maybe I need to just have to build my personal up till my professional.
Yeah.
So whatever goes down can like lean on the other, right? They need to be like, they need to work for themselves,
Yeah.
for each other, sorry. And I'm still working on that.
And like as you said, like at 22, you
Yeah.
were your 17-year-old self,
Yeah.
right?
So I was a baby in my
Yeah.
personal realm.
I can completely relate with that. Like,
Yeah.
I get that.
You know, so I had no idea how to like go about doing things that people might have done like much earlier. So
Yeah.
there could be people who could be looking at me and be like, oh, you're achieving so much.
Yeah.
But I could say the same because, hey, the time you spent,
Yeah. Becoming an adult and a human.
you hung out with friends, and that could be looked at, oh, I hung out with friends, that's why I was not like so. No, I could be like, man, you learned 10 social cues that I didn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's about, like, I think we get so carried away with like societal understanding of success
Yeah.
that we forget that human interaction and all of that is actually what matters.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was so bad at that. So it took me some time to catch up to my, and I'm still like very much trying to catch up today also. But the idea is to, if that takes a hit, if my professional takes a hit tomorrow, it should not shake my identity.
Yeah.
It should not make me think about, like, I shouldn't go into a spiral thinking I'm not worth anything.
Yeah.
You know? If I can reach a point where I laugh it off, oh, that'll be the best. Right? That would be the
That
best.
is the dream.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Make money, save that so you can like live off of it, but really just like not have people's understanding of you affect you.
Yeah.
Right? Or how your music plays out.
And I think that's where you say you don't take yourself so seriously.
yourself seriously, yeah.
You know, you can take your work seriously, but you
yeah.
have to take yourself seriously. And I think that's a very, very important
Yeah.
tool to learn if you want to remain sane and active.
I think I learned this a little earlier also because I think back in school when I would get bullied a few times. I think naturally a coping mechanism was to like think about how funny this is.
Yeah.
And I would start laughing first.
Right.
Like I was like, I need to laugh first at everything that could be like a little traumatic even. So in school I think I picked that up for some reason. Yeah. I think it still applies. Yeah.
You know, in one of your podcasts, you said
Sorry.
that you feel like India as a country takes its art for granted.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
I think you. I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but we expect entertainment. We want to be entertained. Like as a community, we just like we take it for granted.
Yeah.
You know, and no other field is taken for granted like this, right? Like you will pay a doctor. I know it's a very different, like obviously, but like I think in a lot of ways, entertainment is not looked at the way it is in the West.
Right.
You know,
I agree with that,
Right?
but I would let you
Right?
complete it. Yeah.
Even like, for example, like I think artists like, and I don't know if it's the same in the West precisely, but I think today if I want to go on a break and like continue living, and evolve as a person, I think I could be questioned. Why aren't you making the same music that you're doing? It's almost as if like my product is like, it's like there's a sense of entitlement that people start like holding on your stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, we need to hear. Why do you need to hear? I'm so grateful that you hear, but at some point it starts becoming like I am supposed to. And then the question is, I don't know if I'm supposed to. I want to put out music because I like doing it. But then why is there this pressure? Why am I expected to do this? When my folks are not expecting it, when I'm not expecting it, why is this community expecting it? Because somewhere, maybe there's a lack of it. Maybe there's a lack of it. I don't know where it's coming from. But there is a sense of entitlement for sure. I think that's there. We take it for granted. We don't pay for every ticket. We don't. We want to. And I think it's also because of our socio-economic status and all of that, right? We're not still a developing country of sorts. We're not a...
Yeah, art is for higher thinking.
It's
It's when you've satisfied every other need.
Right. Because our basics are not done.
In the pyramid.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So when the basics are not done, I think maybe art acts as a drug, a medicine of sorts.
But I think that you were also tying it to what people feel about your style of music.
Yeah.
Very specific to your style of music. To say that, oh, it's the same thing again and again.
Yeah.
And I've also heard like Sabyasachi also getting accused of that, to which he said that if I don't make it again and again, how am I going to create a signature style? And if I'm not going to have a signature style, what are you coming to me for?
This is a very solid point.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's ingrained in my music. Like, I don't think like one could argue that for that whole conversation about like my music sounding like me, but that's a good thing, right?
Yeah,
it should sound like me.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, in a country full of people who are sounding like the West, who are sounding like other people, everyone's ripping off everyone.
Yeah.
If you are able to sound like yourself is a great thing.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's actually very comical to me. I think it's very ironic, actually.
Yeah.
Ironic because you are accusing me of being original. like why am I, and it's in my sound. Like, how do I take that? I don't want to take it away. Like, that's my sound.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I get that. That's very interesting. It's something to think about. Do you find yourself going back to your Indian classical roots when you are composing?
No, not really.
Does it creep into it? Do you feel like...
it definitely creeps in. Like, it's there. It's a major part of the influence. But I don't think I consciously did anything.
So do you think that, say, if there was a young artist who approached you and said, is it important for me to study music? Like, do you need to know the rules to be able to break them? Because you've broken too many rules, right, in your sound.
Yeah, enough, yeah.
So do you feel like it was because you knew what rules to break, or you knew how limiting a classical structure of things could be?
I didn't know the rules that I was breaking.
Right.
All I knew that I needed to get to a certain point in my exploration of expression. And that happened to be breaking rules. But I think it ties back into my parents giving me that environment where I think I could share
But you knew what to break. You knew what was limiting. You knew what was...
I knew that the thing, if I was asked to follow, then it would be limiting. I don't know what it was that I was following.
Yeah, of course. You're not supposed to know at that age.
I was just like, this is going to stop me. If I sit and do this exact thing that they're expecting from me, then I don't know if I'd be able to,
So then would you say it is important? Would you still say, yes, study music, learn an instrument? Do you think that helps?
This is, again, a very interesting question. The way I look at it is that if you are asking, if you are questioning whether you should drop out or not, you should definitely not drop out.
Yeah.
You need to be deluded enough to not ask.
Yeah.
Right? Then you be so crazy that you have this weird faith in your head that you're like, oh, I'm done. Like, I was in 9th standard and I was just like, I had this in my head.
Yeah.
So both ways are right. You could go to school, learn the craft, and then have expression come out of you.
Yeah.
Or you have too much expression just bubbling out, and then you just need to, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If you have that first one, the second one where you just like have the need to express, you'll figure it out. You know, you will have this weird sense of clarity. I don't pride myself on it. I just feel like I just was that.
Yeah.
You know, but that doesn't mean the other side is wrong. It's totally fine to like learn something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, it'll be limiting for the first one. You know what I mean? It'll be limiting for somebody who already kind of has an idea of what to do.
Yeah.
It might be liberating for somebody that might not know exactly what they want to, you know.
Yeah, and they need a structure.
And they need a structure, and that's okay. I think it's like it's two kinds of thinking, right? I don't know, up down and bottom up. Like, so you could have a long, big picture about your life, and then you're just like ऊपर से नीचे कर रहे हो,
Yeah.
so you're like, okay, I'll build around that.
Yeah.
And the other is like, oh, I don't know where. So
I'm definitely up,
yeah,
bottom up.
Yeah, and that's completely fine.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
both versions work.
That's very well said, yeah.
Both versions work.
So the tagline of #Preach is once upon a disruption. And I think you're one of the most classic cases of disruptors that we've had here. But every few years, an industry needs some kind of disruption. What do
Yeah.
you think your industry needs? What kind of a disruption does it need?
I think disruption of, I mean, in my industry, it would be disruption of a sound, you know, sound so important and so iconic that you might hate it or you might love it, but you cannot ignore it. I think that's really important to have that, you know, just be in everyone's head, no matter what. So yeah, I think in the music industry, we need that sound.
And what makes you feel the most comfortable in your skin?
Spending time with people that you know, I think they remind me of, like, I think my folks, my best friend, my partner, I think they sort of remind me weirdly of me. So the more time I spend with them, the more I feel comfortable under my own skin, which is, yeah, a little weird to think about, but yeah,
Not
for me,
at
that's
all.
what works.
Yeah, it's home.
It's home, yeah. So I feel, because I also have a parallel where with my like me time and when I'm like spending like my solitude wale days, you know, I've been very productive, but I don't know if I was comfortable in my skin.
Right.
It's two things. You could be very productive with yourself,
Yeah.
but is that productivity necessarily coming out of from a place of comfort?
Yeah.
Right? But
Usually it doesn't.
yeah. So I actually would say that for me, comfort is with the people that I,
Right.
you know, feel comfortable with. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've had a really lovely long form conversation.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to put you in like a rapid fire situation.
Let's do it.
Okay. Before that, we have this one game which is bop or not. Artists are born, not made.
Yeah, Bob.
Artists are loners.
Bob. But that's the artist I know.
Artists are always starving.
Bob.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, but starvation of like in a lot of metaphors, right? Like emotionally.
This is a starving artist.
Oh, like we're talking, financially, straight up.
Financially.
Oh, no.
No.
I meant like emotionally.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to be emotionally starved.
Okay. Musicians lead glamorous lives.
What is the opposite of Bob? Should I just say flop? All right, say flop.
Flop. Creativity cannot be taught.
Bob. I think there
There
are
are a
levels.
lot of self-help gurus out there. who are
I know
gonna-
it's a very hot take. It's a hot
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
It's a hot take. I think
But it's a bop, yeah.
you know, somewhere I think it's a Bob.
Skills can be
Skills
taught.
can be taught. You know, you could be taught how to weirdly be creative.
Yeah.
No, or like get creative, but being
Or
creative.
have a creative output.
Yes, yeah. You know?
But to inherently be creative
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
or I feel what can't be taught is taste or like originality. Like
yes,
something
yeah.
sublime.
Yes, yeah.
So what did you say? Is it a bop or not?
I know this is maybe limiting to say, but I would say it's a bop. Yeah.
All musicians are extroverts, like party animals.
Flop.
Travel takes up a significant part of a musician's life.
Not all musicians. Some people also choose not to. But sometimes when it becomes a job occupation,
Yeah, we're talking about successful musicians only.
bop.
Collaboration is key in the creative industry.
Not, yeah, it's not needed.
No?
Yeah.
Interesting. Musicians are night owls.
Bob. It's a Bob. I know very few artists and musicians who actively, I would like to say, Udyan's nuclear, and he has a son, so he can't be a night owl. So he has to wake up in the morning, and so he like makes this statement go like, I can't now say Bob because
Yeah.
he has to be up for Guri in the
Yeah.
morning, and he works through the day. So there are a few people, maybe responsible artists, parent artists cannot be now night owls. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Musicians and artists need to have a secondary stream of income.
Bop. Yeah. Yeah. I
They
think
do?
it's a need. Yeah. I think it should in my world I would say it's a need because then you just need to be free of like like you should not have worry of like
To be able to create.
yes. So I think it's a good need. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good need, yeah.
Do you have a side hustle?
I don't have a side hustle, but I think I tried to find other streams within
Are
music.
you a painter?
I think I could explore that. I don't know if I would love to be though.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see some of your art. Send
Yeah.
us some pictures.
Yeah.
Electronic music is a lot less complex than classical music.
Not.
It's not?
It's I think
It's subjective.
it's subject and I think like both it's apples and oranges. I think we can't compare
True.
the two. Yeah. It's music is music. Every format, every genre has complexity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Music festivals are the best way for artists to gain exposure.
Not in today's day and age.
Social
Yeah.
media?
Yeah, social media now. Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to rapid fire. You gotta
Okay.
be rapid, huh?
Oh, I'm bad at this.
Your favorite destination for a concert?
I've not played here. Darbhanga is my hometown. I would love to play here. Yeah, once.
Oh, nice.
So it's a fantasy. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite collaboration till date?
Mom.
Oh. A movie or TV show that you have loved, that you would have loved to have your music on?
I'm obsessed with this show Ozark. Yeah. But it's so not like, I don't know how they wouldn't want my music, but I would
wouldn't.
still love to like send them.
Okay. Okay. Favorite lyric you've ever written? It'll have to be from Mimi.
Actually, no, because a lot of the stuff on Mimi is written by my mom. On Udd Gaye, when I go like, Hum to ho gaye, Zama, it has to be like it's a very interesting thing I wrote. Yeah.
An underrated indie artist you think people should add to their playlist? Shout out.
Big shout out to, I don't know how big Chardwari is now, but every podcast we do, I think he moves up the rank and I'm so excited about him. I don't know if you've heard his music, but
No.
Chardwari is definitely on the come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The best advice you've ever received in your career? I'm guessing from YouTube.
This is how is this a rapid
You
fire?
can make it a long answer.
I think it wasn't an active advice, but my mom just being encouraging of like whatever I thought is valid. I think that just worked as advice.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's the worst advice you ever received in your career?
Also the same.
Poor mom.
Yeah.
Okay. Your favorite song on your playlist right now?
What am I listening? Can I look at my phone? What am I listening to right now? I am listening to. Oh, I'm listening to Peter Cat. I actually went for their album launch yesterday. So they have it's called. I think the new song's called "People Never Change."
It's they're indie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're a band from India. Yeah, I'm listening to them.
Okay, nice. Another shout out.
Yeah.
If Ritviz wasn't a musician, he would be
Painter.
painter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be a painter.
And what would your advice be to a starving artist, emotional or financial?
The reality in your head is very real. And I think my first half of that advice would be to not give up. But I think as I'm also growing older, I think my second half is also Also, maybe questioning if it's worth it. Yeah. I think because, like, I think we think that there's an answer at the end of,
Yeah.
you know,
The pot at the end of the
yeah,
rainbow.
it's not there.
Yeah.
So, is it really worth it? And it's will be so hard to answer also when you are emotionally and financially starved. Must be so hard to answer that. But maybe coming from a POV, from a place where we think we have something and it's not there, just as long as you can do the art, if you can take care of the art, treat it like a hobby first. It should like satisfy that element. It's not gonna solve problems. So my only thing is that if it's costing friendships and relationships and everything, and you think you can sustain that, that's actually the answer. So yeah. So I mean, yeah.
I think a thing that really helps here, because you never know, right?
Yeah.
The pot at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
And no matter how much you tell a 18-year-old or 17-year-old be realistic, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think what my advice actually is that really helps is read a lot of books or watch a lot of documentaries on artists who you admire or look up to.
Yeah.
Because literally in those 300, 400 rupees, this person has written down their entire life.
Yeah.
And you know how it ends. So then you know what to expect, reality-wise, and like
True.
all of that's kind of something that
I think in a
helps.
very weird way, everyone's trying to achieve this one unified idea of like belongingness, you know?
Yeah.
We're all trying to like belong to something and like feel secure in like Mehfooz, you know?
Yeah.
I just plugged my song. But like, and some people choose the route of like proving it to the world, but then they end up wanting the same thing.
Yes.
So if you're able to find that without having to put yourself through like, you know, so that's where the question comes in. If you're not too crazy about it, it's okay. I think it's okay to not become like
Yeah.
this thing that they sell.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. I think that's very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. My greatest takeaway from this conversation was there are no rules. There is no wrong or right way to build your career, especially when it comes to the world of music. As long as you are creating something that's soulful, that's authentic, and that's very, very true to who you are as an artist. As long as there is passion, creativity, and perseverance, there is very little that you can't achieve. So don't forget to follow us on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. Until then, keep listening, keep creating, keep growing, keep evolving, and follow us for more conversations like this one on #Preach.